Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host, Philip, followed by the wonderful man across the screen, my loving brother, the one, the only Joseph Kruba.
Hello there, everybody. Yes, yes,
Hello
yes,
there.
yes.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, hello there, hello there. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing and breaking down and reacting like all those good channels do to the latest installment of the Disney Plus series, Ahsoka.
Ooh.
So, as you guys know, the recent episode of Ahsoka just came out this Tuesday. It was called Episode 6, Far, Far Away. It was a pretty decent episode. Obviously, it was living off of a lot of hype, from the fifth episode, because obviously that was the bread and butter of this Ahsoka series so far. And I think we got a lot to talk about when it comes to this episode. We disagree in a few things. We see some things in a different light. Um, but before we get into all that, for those of you that don't know, we just had this like just like very loud discussion like off camera about a certain part of the show.
Stupid. I can't believe we really conversed about this off camera. We should have just waited because now we're gonna converse about it for another 20 minutes on camera, and it's gonna.
Guys, he's just jealous that I'm right and he just doesn't
No,
want to
you're
accept
not
it.
even right. You're not even. I guarantee our viewers will be like, "What the heck? What is he saying?"
All right, well,
But
I mean, we'll let the viewers decide then, I guess,
go ahead,
and
viewers, decide.
okay, all right. But before we we get into the rest of the episode like that, we'll just start off with how we doing, what's changed in the last week we've seen each other, what we've been up to, what we've been doing. Since I am currently speaking, I shall go first. Everything's been going, same old, same old. School's been going good, kind of just trucking along, doing assignments here, doing stuff there. Coffee's definitely been a big help because these classes are boring as fuck, to be honest. And,
Yeah.
sometimes I have trouble staying awake, especially when, they
Yeah.
run like 2.5 hours long and I'm just like, okay, I want to go home now. So
Mm,
yeah, so masters is no joke. It's incredibly boring. And yeah, so thank God there's caffeine and that exists.
gotta love caffeine.
And yeah, but I mean, otherwise, thankfully everything's going good. So, knock on wood, hopefully that continues. Work has been going good as well. Really nothing to complain about there. I had today off. I'm gonna have tomorrow off to just relax and kick back, and then it's back to the grind over the weekend. So you know how it is. But yeah, otherwise pretty good. Can't complain. Doing well. And yeah, just excited to get into this wonderful episode and hear how my loving brother has been. So here you go. Eh. Okay, there you go. It's your turn now.
Oh, oh,
Oh, nice catch.
oh.
Oh, he's got
Got
it.
it.
Oh, nice
Got it.
catch.
Got
Very
it. Got
nice.
it. Don't worry. Got it. It's right here. It's right in my hand. Putting it down. Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Um, well, brother across the screen from me, I am doing well. It's another day, another dollar. You know how it is. Couple exciting things. I finally got my college diploma in the mail, so that is packed away in my safe right now. It is a lot smaller than I thought. I waited 4 years for that crap, and but it is nice, and I'm eager to get a frame for it and maybe put my tassel in it, one of those frames that has the tassel on the side, and your diploma there. So it's nice to have it and hopefully be able to display it for you guys to see on the channel, and for me to look at as well, because you work 4 years for something, you're gonna want to look at it. Um, I just opened up another bank account as well to kind of add another savings. So I'm very happy about that. I've been working on a lot of financial stuff, been trying to add a couple of funds here and there and create more of a Star Wars. Been trying to create more of a savings plan on multiple fronts. So I mean that's going well. Um, Work is has been all right. It's been a regular week, nothing new. I'm trying to create a new menu at work, so hopefully the kids you know, like what I make. I mean, majority of them do, and then I get the one, Blake, who's always like, I don't like your food, and it's like, it's fine. If you don't have to like my food, but I make these perfectly round and symmetrical pancakes with syrup and strawberries. I'd expect you to try it, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not for everyone. I'm not gonna go all Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, on you, and just commit treason. But we'll leave that for another day. Um, put it this side. Put it this side. Um, and you know, I am very excited once again to talk about Star Wars. I actually had an idea in mind that after we finish this series, I would like to keep it on the Star Wars track, and I would like to just literally do an episode about each Star Wars movie, going from episode 1 to 9, including Rogue One, Solo, and all that fun stuff. Clone Wars, basically just Star Wars projects for the next couple of months. I mean, I think that would be great and amazing, especially since we got Ahsoka for a little bit more. Um, I enjoyed the episode, but we will get into that in a little bit. Other than that, just doing some more of the moving process. Still nothing crazy, so still here, and just trying to keep things going well. But school, pretty boring week, but happens. School is school, and I still got a couple of years of this stuff, so. Looking forward to I guess getting along with it and just kind of getting done with it. But overall, going well. Another podcast, another episode, another 2 hours talking in the screen. But yeah.
Very nice, very nice. All right, that was a good summary.
Mhm.
Also, my brother told me that we recently had another country added to our list. Do you want to give them a quick shout out before we start, Joey?
Yes, I completely forgot about that until you just mentioned it. And I was just
That's how
talking
much
about
he
it
cares,
today.
guys. That's how much he cares.
Okay, I actually do care a great amount because it is a high achievement for us. We have another country added to the list. Our most recent country is Germany. So thank you for our German listeners out there. Whoever you are, definitely let us know. If it's a couple of you, awesome. But even if it's just one person, that is amazing to us. I believe now, off the top of my head, we're up to 13 or 14 countries.
You
So
know
that's
what?
insane.
What we should do is that we should get like some sort of whiteboard or something like that, right? In like the shape of like a world map, and we should color in a country every single time it gets like added to our play, so we can see how many listeners we have from all across the world.
Oh, write that
Write
down.
that down. Write that down.
Write that down. Write that down.
That'd be cool. Just imagine like getting like a Two Sons podcast posted and then just putting it right next to it, so then we could like track our like stats, like each month.
That would be really cool.
Write that down. Write that down. But
Mm.
yeah, so once again, thank you guys for all the love and support. It's always nice to see our broadcast and our wonderful voices breach the United States and go abroad to all these wonderful and amazing countries. Even if it's like less than 1% of you, you know what? A percentage is still a percentage. So we love you no matter how big or small our fan base is across the globe.
Exactly.
And we hope you guys continue to come back. And we always get excited when there's a new country added to the list. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I think with that being said, we can get right into the episode. Pretty much, there's really nothing going on movie news to really discuss. Obviously, these strikes are still going on, so stuff on that front has been kind of quiet. Um, Really nothing to report yet. There will probably be more news towards the end of next week as we get closer to October, and there are some things that are coming out in October and stuff we could briefly touch upon, like for our 2-minute topic of the day or whatever. But it's a little too early to do that now, so we'll just leave that off to the side. And yeah, with that being said, we're both doing good. We're both doing great. So thankfully, by the grace of the wonderful universe, we are back for another podcast, and we are back for another amazing Ahsoka conversation. Like all of our videos, we're going to start off with our ratings. So we're going to do it out of 10 suns, of course. I'm going to let my brother go first, and then I'm going to respond with my rating. So, Joey, what do you think of this episode? What did you rate it out of 10?
I'm gonna give this episode a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I thought
Okay.
it was good. I did not think it was great, mainly because I might have gotten a couple of things spoiled for me. It kind of let my energy go down a little bit. Definitely slower pace. We saw a different side of basically what we just saw in the last episode, but we'll get more into that. But for me, no, pretty solid episode. So 8.5 out of 10 for me.
All right. All right. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Hmm.
I'm gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10 suns.
Not bad.
I think it's a good episode. I don't think it warrants anything more or less than that. I think 8 is a pretty solid score for it. Thankfully, I didn't get anything spoiled for me because I watched it the night of. So that always helps. Yeah, I know, shocker. But there were some small things that I had a problem with, and I know they're these small things did not ruin the episode for me, so I did not
Mhm.
take points off because of these things. These are just things as a Star Wars fan that I nitpicked, but they did not deduct 2 points from my rating. So when you guys hear them down the line, you're like, oh, really? That's why he like gave it an 8 out of 10. It's like, no, it's like just because that's what I thought the episode deserved. And then these things were kind of like an added bonus on the side. So
Mhm.
but yeah, all right. So it sounds like we both kind of agree with our ratings here, so that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I do agree that it was a good episode. I mean, I think we could pretty much establish that unless these last two episodes like blow us out of the park, I think episode 5 is probably going to be the best episode of this series. And it is hard to kind of top the hype of this episode. I mean, there's nothing saying that you can't keep the ball rolling, which I think they did. I don't think it had as much velocity, but I think they did keep the ball rolling in some degree. But unfortunately, unless something really epic happens, there is nothing that's really going to top episode 5. That's where it peaked. That was like our climax, so to speak, and then now we're heading back down the roller coaster. And like I said, hopefully they could just keep that momentum going and they could finish on a high note. I think if they do that and these next two episodes, stay in that like 8 or 9 out of 10 range, I think this is probably a solid B plus show, maybe even getting into that A tier. I mean, I think they really need to like not blow me out of the water, but at least I need those like 9 out of 10 or anything higher than that in these last two episodes to give it like an A tier, to be honest. But if we see those consistent like eights or 8.5 out of 10s, it's probably going to end up in the B tier for me. But you know what? That's still pretty okay for a Star Wars show. Again, we don't know how the series is going to end. We have 2 episodes left. Obviously, whatever we don't finish is going to lead off into the Dave Filoni movie. So, tying that in all together, this is definitely still the best Star Wars that we've seen in a while. And, Star Wars, the Clone Wars fans are getting love. Star Wars Rebels fans are obviously getting love. So, overall, it's a great time for Star Wars. It's a pleasure to always talk about. And, yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about in this episode. So, um, I think, without being said, we could just kind of dive right into the episode, right?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So episode 6 was titled Far, Far Away, which is obviously is a little Easter egg to how, the Star Wars franchise has opened up for the past, oh God, like 40 years,
Yeah.
40, maybe 40, 50 years, longer than that. The story behind that is that, back at the Jedi Temple, the Jedi would tell, their younglings, stories across the galaxy. And, when they told their stories, they would start them as like, in a galaxy far, far away, which is a nod to obviously how every Star Wars film opens up. So, as a nod to that, this episode is called Far, Far Away. We open up with Ahsoka and Hu Yang in their T6 Jedi shuttle as they are traveling in a Purgle's mouth through hyperspace. And we actually see hyperspace look a little different this time.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just because it's a different type of light speed travel where it kind of looks a little bit more rainbowish, kind of reminded me of Thor and the Rainbow Bridge, going to
Yeah.
Asgard. I got those vibes. But yeah, so I mean, this is probably definitely a different type of light speed travel, as obviously they are traveling in a whale and not just in a starship.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it just might be maybe the biological makeup. Maybe they do something differently. But it was the first time that we've seen light speed travel actually depicted that way. Every other Star Wars film has always been depicted as that like classic like light blue, dark blue, and everything. So this was the first time that there was like a lot of color and like kind of like rainbow and everything. Um, so I mean, visually, I thought that looked pretty pleasing.
Mm.
Right off the bat, I was getting like Finding Nemo vibes, like with the turtles just like riding that Australian current. Like
Yeah.
I
I
know
can
I
definitely
for
see
some
that.
reason like I just got that vibe like as they were traveling, and I was like, yep, yep, this is Finding Nemo, but Star Wars.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so then we focus on the inside of the shuttle, obviously, and we are sitting down with Hu Yang and Ahsoka, and they're basically talking about what they kind of expect to find. When the Purgles jump out of hyperspace, they are talking a little bit about Sabine, and Ahsoka is fearful, for the decision that Sabine has made. She believes that she went with Balin willingly, and she wishes she was kind of there to like counsel and supervise Sabine, to make sure that she made the right decision. And as she's saying all this, Hu Yang is basically saying, well, that is what you fear. So we see that even though like she's had this like great Messiah Gandalf the White awakening, excuse me, that she's still not perfect. She still has that fear, that anxiety that any one of us have. So right off the bat, again, we're seeing that. We're seeing that she's not perfect, that she does have a fear, that Sabine is going down a certain path. And it's just kind of interesting to see how, like, Hu Yang is able to, pick up off that and kind of like, reciprocate that to her in a way. Then they kind of get into this, like, little classic dialogue where, she reminisces about, like, the stories that Hu Yang told her and the younglings, back at the Jedi Temple. And it was kind of funny because I forgot what it was titled, but I think it was like the history of the galaxy, like part one, two, and three. And Ahsoka's like, "Oh, I like part one the best." And some people were thinking that was a nod to like the trilogies because there's
Mm,
three trilogies, like the prequel, original, and sequel.
yeah,
So obviously, because she took part in the prequel trilogy, I think that might be a little kind of like cool little Easter egg where she's like, "Oh, well, obviously one is the best," because
yeah,
which I mean, if it is, I mean that's pretty funny. I mean, I do like that. Um, but we do see how, like, Hu Yang tries to kind of like press her about like some important questions, and she kind of like, sidelines it by, having her like, tell one of the stories. Because obviously at first she doesn't want to hear a story, and then when he brings up something that she doesn't want to deal with, she's like, what, as a matter of fact, I will hear one of those stories. And as the camera pans behind them and we look, out into hyperspace, he utters the classic lines, saying, once, what was it, like, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
mm.
And that's how, like, the beginning of the episode basically ends with, that scene coming to a close. um and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was the only actually part of the episode that we saw Ahsoka, so it was a little ironic how, the show is called Ahsoka and we only saw
I
her for
knew it
like
was
a
going to be an
minute.
episode like this. It was like the Book of Boba Fett episode where Boba
Well,
was
I
in
mean, it would
prison
make sense. I mean,
again.
obviously, we do know that she is a little bit behind when it comes to
Yeah,
traveling to Peridia, so it would make sense that she would still be traveling this whole episode. But honestly, I didn't mind it. I mean, I didn't really mind seeing her. I mean, the whole last episode literally just focused on her, so I did not mind that they kind of brought our attention back to Balin and Skull and Morgan Elsbeth and Sabine and everything like that. So I mean, I was okay with it.
yeah. I gotta say, I really liked a couple of things too about that little scene. Is it's making me really. I mean, I already like Huang, but like it's really making me like him as more of a companion, to somebody. We see R2 with Anakin, and even Luke. We see BB-8 with Poe, and now we're seeing basically Huang and Ahsoka, and it's not like a common like little droid, that messing around thing. Like no, it's like somebody that kind of matches Ahsoka in terms of the way she talks or the dialect that they have, and I pretty much like every scene with them. I think it was a very interesting choice, including Huang in this, and he's been a very pleasant surprise. And I like that you brought up that even though she had this like revolutionizing experience happen to her in the last episode, we still see that fear and doubt in her, which just calls back to like Anakin, like just because like again, I don't think Ahsoka will really ever get rid of that part of her that is that little bit Anakin that regardless if she came to terms with it or not, I think she's always gonna have those fears and doubts in a certain sense, maybe depending on the situation. And it's something like that is a little interesting to throw in there because it might be subtle, but it might come back like in another episode or two, and we'll talk a little bit more about because I saw something very interesting about somebody who said the way they think episode 7 is going to play out, and if it does, I mean honestly it makes the most sense. But it's going to be really interesting. And like you said, it was pretty cool seeing a different version of lightspeed travel, because a lot of people might have not even thought about that because again we're so used to seeing it in that one clear cut, oh this is what lightspeed is, but it's like no, these are like intergalactic creatures, and they do it naturally. So this is probably the way that these space beings did interdimensional travel and what it actually looks like, naturally. Maybe those are the natural gases or some crap. I don't really know. But that was a cool little thing to throw in it too. And the Purgles are really cool. And who would have thought they probably would become some of the most important species in Star Wars in recent years, like just based off of being random in Rebels, they definitely turned around and are a crucial part now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And like I said, I mean, I think it was a great way to enter the episode and kind of give some screen time to all the characters. Obviously, we didn't see anything of, Hera or Chopper or Jason or, the rest of the Phoenix Squadron in this episode. Obviously, that just made a lot of sense. We don't know if we're going to see them again. To be honest, I mean, it all depends on what happens in these next two episodes because, are they going to be staying in Peridia? Are they going to make it back to our galaxy? We do not know. So as of now, we don't know any other ways to get to Peridia besides that star map and obviously the Purgles. So it is highly unlikely that we might see the New Republic or Hera again in this series, and we will probably see them once again in the movie. But I mean,
Mm,
obviously, it would be super cool to see them again. But I mean, I'm not holding my breath because just the way the story is planning out, it does not make too much sense. Um, but I mean, obviously, we'll get into that, in the future if we do happen to see them again. So, excuse me. So, we get into the beginning of the episode. Obviously, after the scenes with Ahsoka and Huyang, we pan back to Morgan Elsbeth, Baylan Skoll, and Shin Hati. Also, Sabine, obviously, as she's being held captive on the Eye of Sion, which is Morgan Elsbeth's ship. So they are currently still in hyperspace, and we find out some interesting history about Peridia. First of all, Peridia is the destination where Morgan Elsbeth believes that Thrawn is. We know that it is a planet that is in another galaxy. So as we mentioned again, this is taking place in a whole other galaxy. So this is actually the first time in Star Wars where we've ever left our own galaxy. So this
mm,
whole episode, besides the points in hyperspace, take place in a whole other galaxy, which is just kind of cool to think about. Really, just kind of pays homage to in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, it just kind of just ties in the whole idea of Star Wars beautifully.
mm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a little cool detail to kind of think about as we're talking about this episode. Um, but we do find out that Peridia is actually the ancient home of the Dathmiri, which, for regular Star Wars canon and in our galaxy, we know that there is a planet called Dathomir, and Dathomir was inhabited by the Dathomiri witches, the Night Sisters, and then also the Night Brothers, the Zabrak species, with which the likes of Savage Opress and Darth Maul is a part of. But we do find out that actually the Dathomiri uh, originated on this planet of Peridia, and hundreds of thousands or even maybe millions of years ago, they migrated what seems like to our galaxy with the help of Purgles, and probably settled on that planet which we know as Dathomir, and they probably just named the planet after their own species, the Dathomiri. So again, this is a way to kind of tie in the planet of Peridia and this other galaxy with our galaxy. And I actually want to get your opinion on this. Do you think it was a smart move for them to kind of tie in this planet to something pre-existing that we already know in Star Wars, or do you wish they just would have had this as like a totally blank planet and we knew nothing about it? Well, let me add some more on that before you answer, because does the whole point of going in a galaxy far, far away or another galaxy make sense if you're just going to tie it into something that we've already seen in Star Wars?
A part of me is like, eh, and a part of me is like interested. Mainly because like when I think of like Dathomir and like the Dathomirian witches and like all that, obviously like we know they have like some sort of obviously witchcraft power that is definitely different than maybe witchcraft we would know about in real life or just whatever. um so it seems like they can do some stuff with that, but then it also makes me think, how the hell did they go from there to there? And then Morgan Elsbeth says the line of like, yo, we were the first ones to tame the beast of the Purgles and stuff. So somehow I guess they rode the Purgles or something to the other galaxy, and that's how they ended up there. So it's like, okay, it's interesting because now we know that there are people from another galaxy in the Star Wars universe, and they maybe that's why they were so successful in some of the things they did, and it kind of brings me. I believe they also threw that in to also help tie in stories, about certain characters' backgrounds, but also possibly introduce another side of Star Wars that we have seen, but we haven't seen in a little bit of a while. And you probably kind of know what I'm getting at, and that's something I would like to talk about a little later in the episode. But that kind of makes me think so. But also when I think of like another galaxy far, far away, I was really thinking of like something completely different. Um, and we kind of saw like a pretty much deserted planet with just random things here and there. So I mean, it's not like I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of just like, okay, like now it's interesting to think about these things and maybe it'll go this way. But I feel like that's just typical of Star Wars to, kind of still have some sort of what's the word, like tie to, what we know just because it'll help it make sense, I guess, in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of on the same page with you. I mean, to be honest, a part of me was definitely a little disappointed when, they kind of had that, like, tie-in to our
Yeah.
galaxy. Like, I mean, I assumed, the whole point of going to another galaxy was to branch out from the Star Wars universe that we know. And feel like by them turning in this whole new planet that we never even heard of, and they basically were like, "Oh yeah, this used to be the ancient homeworld of the Night Sisters and the Dathomiri." It's like, okay, well, you know what? That's a really cool concept. It shows that maybe some species that we see in Star Wars are not originally from our galaxy, which is a cool concept. But then again, it kind of loses a little bit of its luster because then, if people are going to bring up Peridea in conversation now they're going to be like, "Oh, well, this was the ancient homeworld of Dathomiri." I mean, there's still more to this planet that we don't know about, like, like why did they leave? Blah blah blah. Like, so there are a million questions that we could ask, but I don't know. Like, I'm kind of in the same boat with you, where it's like, you know what? It was cool. It's a nice concept. I think the way they handled it was done pretty well. But then it's like, really? It's like this couldn't just be like just some random planet that we knew nothing about. Like, it has to have some sort of tie.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like a 50-50. But I think what they did and for how it fits the story, I think it makes sense, and I could pretty much say that I think I'm okay with it. But again, it will be interesting to see how these next two episodes unfold, and what else we learn about Peridea and all that. Because there might have been stuff that maybe Thrawn knows about the planet. Maybe those great mothers that we saw, maybe they know something about it. Maybe Ezra knows something about it. So it will definitely be interesting to kind of see, like, how it unfolds in the next two episodes. But so as we continue, they finally end up making it out of hyperspace, and they come to the planet of Peridea. And I mean, it looks like a pretty visually stunning planet. I mean, it doesn't really look like much from the outside. It kind of just looks all blue and white and just kind of there. But then we noticed that there was this like really cool ring around it. And at first I was watching it, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, it kind of looks like Saturn.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
what I thought.
as the Eye of Sion continues to go in, then I'm like, oh shit. I was like, those are bones.
Yeah.
And again, we find out, I think one of them tells us, as they're flying in, that Peridea is known as a graveyard for the Purgles. That this is where the Purgles migrate to die. So that was kind of sad. And then as they go in, obviously you see all the bones making up this whole entire ring of the planet, and you're like, okay, now that's depressed because now you know that these beautiful little space whales go to this planet to die. But fascinatingly enough, this is actually found in our own biological environment. And animal species that actually does this is elephants. And there's been research that shows that elephants will actually go to a certain place at the end of their life to die as sort of like their graveyards. So it's actually kind of cool to see that animals in our present world actually have the same customs as these imaginary space whales that do not exist. But again, we haven't explored the whole entire solar system or galaxy, so we don't. Hey, there could be space whales out
Yeah.
there. I mean, you
I
never
mean,
know.
I
I
hear
mean,
sounds at night. I mean,
in a galaxy far, far away. Am I right?
exactly. Like,
Uh.
like those things in the sky. What are those? So is that your boy Ezra and the Purgles? Like, who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah, exactly. But as we continue, we finally breach the atmosphere of the planet, and we're
Not
diving.
breach like whales breach the surface. The
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Stop it, stop it.
that's my
Yeah. So we breach the atmosphere of the planet, and we're gliding into what looks like this kind of like structure built into the side of a cliff. And I mean, if anybody's watched Lord of the Rings, it kind of like reminded me of like Minas Tirith, which was like a location in Lord of the Rings that was basically like a fortress or a kingdom that was like built into the side of a mountain. So again, kind of cool to see the similarities. But as they're diving down, we see these like really distorted and kind of creepy looking statues of basically these like what look like Night Sisters with like these just big long faces that also kind of reminds me as like a little Easter egg of that like really famous painting like where like the person's like holding their face and they're like screaming.
Oh, like I don't know what it's called, but I just call it the Scream.
Yeah, I was literally about to call it that, but I don't know if that was the appropriate name for it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically that painting. So we kind of see like the same facial features, which if we compare them to the statues that we saw on the opening planet of what was it called? I believe Arcana. Was that the opening planet?
Yeah, something like that.
We see that these statues, like on Peridia, look more in like distress or they're screaming or they're shocked. But we see the statues on Arcana, which could have been the one of the first places the Dathomiri migrated to, in ancient times. We see them more content, they're more at peace, they're more at rest. So we don't know if these statues maybe have some sort of magical capabilities. Maybe these are what the Great Mothers use to kind of communicate with Morgan Elsbeth like over galaxies, or maybe these are just designed a certain way to maybe simulate the horrors and the destruction of the planet and why this is the ancient homeworld and not the actual homeworld. Because obviously something have had to happen. So again, it's just kind of interesting to like pick apart these little pieces here and there and just kind of figure out what is going on. Was also giving me some like Game of Thrones vibes. I mean, there's a city in Essos where like you go in and there's like this giant statue just awaiting you like at the harbor. So again, like just kind of like reminiscent of like some certain franchise and stuff, and it was pretty cool. Um, so we finally see them land, and everybody gets off the ship, and we see them approach what looks like the kind of like ritual or the sacred space that we saw on Cetos, but obviously it was a lot more clean. It was newer. It was kept. Obviously the one on Cetos was like ancient and like was sea torn and stuff like that. So again seeing the difference, the differences and similarities from what we've seen to what we haven't seen. And the party basically approaches these three Dathomiri witches. For those of you that watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars, I mean, their outfits and the way they looked was straight out of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It's even straight out of Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor because that's the way that Merrin looks. At least more in the first one. I mean, she kind of, I think, updates her wardrobe in the second one, but at least more in the first one. Um, and we are told that these are the Great Mothers. Now, they do have names because they were given names in the credits. I do not remember them off the top of my head, but they do have an interesting tie to Greek mythology, as they are the three like kind of like keepers of time or spinners of time or whatever. Like one of them like weaves the thread of fate, the other
Yeah.
one like measures it to see how long it is, and then the final one cuts it to kind of like end your life basically.
Mhm.
So again, we see the similarities of mythology because we've seen a lot of mythological representation in Ahsoka so far. With Balin and Skull. Obviously that's a connection to Norse mythology. We see, on the pathway to Perea, they placed a planet called, or a moon called Odin. And then now we have the Greek mythology reference with those three witches, being assimilated into Greek mythology, which was also really cool. Um, and, they obviously speak to each other. We see that we kind of understand that Morgan has been communicating with these great mothers. So we don't know if they all kind of speak for themselves or maybe they just kind of speak through one another. We don't know if it's like some mystical thing or whatever. But basically, the great mothers turn to the Sabine and then they're like, "You reek of Jedi," which I was
That
like,
was so like
I was
just
like,
out of
part of me, I
pocket.
was like, you sure about that? I was like, there's literally two other
I
Force
don't
users right next to her, and you're telling me that she reeks of Jedi? Like I
I don't
just
think she was talking like even though if she sensed it, I feel like in that moment she wasn't talking about like Sabine. I feel like she was like hinting at Balin, like because yeah, she did like look at Sabine, but like I just feel like it's an awkward thing to say about Sabine, especially considering that she has not used the Force, like
yeah.
at all.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
was
I
a
mean
it was a
that
funny
that was
line.
definitely yeah, that was definitely
Like
weird. I don't understand why. I was kind of
um,
confused like that. Like when they called a Jedi, I was like,
unless
do
like
we need to have this conversation again? I was like, she is not a Jedi.
unless it was like I don't know because immediately when she said that I was like oh maybe she's sensing now that they're here Ezra or something but I right after she said it I was like she's probably talking about Balin like because I felt like we were going to see a certain side of Balin in this episode and we'll get more into that later
Yeah.
But I just thought it was kind of a weird thing to just throw out there because it was like random. Like they were all talking, and it's like it smells like Jedi. Like it's just like
Yeah, no,
what?
I do agree with you. I mean, that's actually a good point. I mean, because obviously we see Morgan look back at Sabine, so maybe the Great Mothers just assumed that Morgan was looking at Sabine, so that meant that she was the one that reeked of Jedi. So, I mean, that
Yeah.
is a good point that you make up. Maybe they just trusted her, and they're like, oh, well, I guess she's the Jedi if it reeks like Jedi.
Mhm.
But we actually see that there's this like animosity between the Night Sisters and the Jedi and stuff like that. But again, we've seen that as far back as the Clone Wars and even Rebels. So we see that these two ancient forms of magic obviously do not get along with one another. Besides, unless you're in Jedi Fallen Order Survivor and you're Cal and Marin and you have this lovely relationship and stuff like that. Otherwise, these two ancient magics are definitely long lost foes. But we do see that they kind of have like these cool balls that kind of turn into some sort of like prison, and they basically take Sabine off into like solitude, to just go think about what she did,
Yeah, that
basically.
was like a funny scene. It was like a parent dragging like a kid on like a leash. It was like,
Yeah.
bro,
And then Sabine like is like throwing a tantrum, like you promised, and then he's
Yeah.
just like looking at, he's just looking, he's like, I have no idea who that is. Like I just,
Yeah, exactly. It's like she was on the ship. Like what?
and then yeah, and then I mean that's basically how that scene kind of wraps up really. I mean, before we transition again over to Sabine, so we see Sabine in her holding cell, so to speak. Yeah, I think so. I think we see Sabine first. Yeah, we see Sabine first, and we see her in her holding cell and everything. And once again, just like she would, she stands up and she looks at the door and she goes like this. And, and she's trying she
Just
just eh, and
nothing.
she's trying to reach out with the force if you if you guys couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
I get it. I
And
get it.
and for a second there, like when everything started to shake, I was like, oh God, I was like, please no, please no.
I
I was like,
really thought. I really thought.
but to our surprise and to our astonishment, and again, this was probably like one of my best scenes of this episode. The rumbling is actually from a ship. I see that was good. Yeah, that was good. And over the so-called like hill fortress, whatever you want to call it, we see the beautiful silhouette of the Chimera. So we see this massive Imperial Star Destroyer fly above the the hill fortress, kind of similar to how it was over. Help me out here. Jeddah. How the Imperial Star Destroyer was stationed over the
Yes, yes.
temple in Jeddah. It kind of gave me those same vibes, like when it was like
Mhm.
leaving and everything. So that was pretty cool. And right away, we're seeing a couple of things. We're seeing the immense detail that they took into recreating the Chimera, because obviously the Chimera is just like any other Imperial Star Destroyer. However, there were a few things that made it a little bit different. I mean, the easiest thing is the symbol that's on the very base of the Star
Yes.
Destroyer. So obviously, if you saw it in Rebels or you saw it then, it kind of has this like really cool looking symbol that I can't really decipher. I'm sure there's like a picture of it out there somewhere where you could actually tell what it is, but it just looks super cool. I mean, it's probably super intimidating to people that are looking from the ground and they just look up at the Star Destroyer. But again, we see the attention to detail there. We see that obviously there are a few parts of the hull, so like the overall armor and look of the Star Destroyer, as well as some of the ball antennas and the
Mhm.
engines are obviously out of commission.
Yeah.
Now those gold parts, I mean, are those gold parts been repaired? Is that just like kind of like paint chipped off? We don't know. And I mean, I only bring up the gold because we kind of get back to the gold in a couple of
Mhm.
seconds. Um, so has the Chimera been repaired? I mean, has Morgan Elsbeth been sending supplies all along, or are these just the battle wear and tear that we see? Because obviously the Chimera was grabbed by the Purgle, if you do not remember, and just yeeted into hyperspace. So obviously it suffered all amounts of damage, going through hyperspace and everything, and obviously it's not in the best of shape. I mean, we only saw like four of its tiny engines working. The two main ones were not working. One of those balls at the very top was not working, and all across the hall and stuff, there was a bunch of damage. So again, those parts that were damaged were cased in gold, so we don't know if those were repairs or just whatever. But again, we see, and then the music just gets really intense, and I mean, I cannot think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but the guy that is in charge of the music for this series is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, like this was giving me like Roman Empire vibes, barbarian vibes, like just like throat music. I mean, it was
And just like
awesome.
the chanting too, I was like, oh, here we
And
go.
then obviously as the Chimera parks and everything, and we all of a sudden, we were brought into this frame where we see the inside of the hangar bay or the Star Destroyer, and I mean we see the TIE fighters. I'm sure there's probably a couple of like Thrawns, like TIE interceptors or whatever. Because I mean, obviously that was his biggest project, like during
Yeah.
Rebels and in the Thrawn trilogy books. That was his biggest. He wanted the TIE defenders. That was it. That was his program. He wanted that to succeed instead of the Death Star. So that was kind of his baby, and obviously TIE defenders, they had shields, they were able to jump in and out of hyperspace. They were like the state of the art. And honestly, if the Empire actually would have put funds towards them, they would have like completely wiped out the Rebel Alliance. I mean, it was just, you know. But anyway, so again, we're greeted in the hangar bay. We see this like whole legion of like stormtroopers and everything. We see the TIE fighters, the TIE defenders, whatever. And again, as we pan through the crowd, we hear the chants of Thrawn, we hear the eerie music. I mean, it's getting hype, it's getting pumped up. And then we see as we go through the stormtroopers that that obviously their armor is tattered and their armor is dirty. Some of them are wrapped in red robes. Some of them have gold plating, and maybe cracks and stuff in their armor. And as we continue the pan, the man himself starts walking down the aisle. So we see that when he starts walking, he's in that like just classic like arms behind his back, like very
Hmm.
military like, just like calm and methodical. However, when he reaches our characters and comes into our view, he's kind of just walking normally, which I wish he would have continued that military walk the whole way through. I mean, I think the scene was perfect. I mean, if he would have just kept that like calm and collected military walk and like, his hands behind his back like the whole entire time, that would have been like, yes, this is Thrawn. Like, just look at him. He looks amazing. This is, you know, but otherwise, we see Thrawn make his grand appearance and obviously it was visually stunning. Like I said, it's one of my favorite parts of the episode. What they did with the Chimera was brilliant. What they did with his Stormtrooper Legion and everything was brilliant. I mean, the actor himself, the man who voiced Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels, he looks fantastic as a character. I think he looks pretty good. I know some people kind of like clowning on him or whatever, but he does look pretty good. I mean, for a live action Thrawn and for a live action Chiss, that is probably the best you're going to do, especially if you're trying to imitate Grand Admiral Thrawn. And we see that his second in command, who is a stormtrooper named Enoch, kind of has this like really cool, like Greco-Roman esque style helmet. Because obviously we see his helmet has been battered, so it's
Hmm.
kind of been replaced by this like cool looking like gold face. A lot of people compared it to the Gladiator character Tigris when he had that like steel or silver
Hmm.
plated face mask kind of. So again, just very Roman Empire esque
Yeah.
theme. We were talking about this before. I mean, there's always that meme going around. It's like, oh, do men often think about the Roman Empire? And it's like, as soon as like that's said, it's like now we just open up this episode. It's like, yes, the Roman
This is
Empire.
our Roman
Yeah,
Empire.
this is our Roman Empire. Okay, you guys wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then we see Grand Admiral Thrawn make his return. So
I gotta say, one of the things I really love, and I think what's great about this scene is all the little attention to detail. Again, especially seeing that ship, like you see how obviously menacing it is, and the design is beautiful underneath. Um, and then again, when you like look into the ship, you're like, oh yeah, like it's fucked up. Like obviously it was grabbed and torn through hyperspace. And I love that attention to detail. And then again, it's almost like every individual stormtrooper has a very different they all have very similar looks, but it's like they're not one of the same. It reminded me a little bit about the first Mandalorian season where we saw those like stormtroopers that were kind of just dirty and beaten up, but these are like stormtroopers that you could clearly tell that like their helmets are cracked. Again, they're being held together by rope. They got different colors on them. You literally got a second in hand looking like an elite Roman soldier. I mean, it was just insane. And something I loved about Thrawn too is Thrawn is always very, very neat, very put together, very clean. And if you look at his uniform, I mean, he's a white uniform too, so that's gonna be very hard to keep, clean and pristine. But if you look at his uniform, it's like there are little spots, like if you look on the neck or like, a little around the collar, like you could tell it's torn. It's like, torn a little bit, but it's still, up and pristine. And that's the look like that. He's been with nobody for, 7 years besides obviously the people around him. It's like, why, is he still that pristine looking Thrawn? But it's just that attention to detail that I really love that they actually put into this. And again, people gonna complain about the look and stuff, but this is as good as you're gonna get it. This is the voice actor of Thrawn. He looks the part to me. It won't translate the same, obviously, but from what he's supposed to look as, I think he pretty much nails the part, and I'm excited to see more of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really love how you actually touched upon that little detail because that's something that like I noticed because again we know Theron to be very prim and proper, to keep things neat and organized, and even himself, I mean, if he's been gone for like 7 or 9 years, I mean, obviously that's going to take a toll on everybody. So we even see as proper and prim and dressed as he looks, we see that time is still, not always escaping him, because we see that his uniform is a little stained. He kind of has wrinkles around the collar, like you said. So I mean, even he is a little disheveled. And obviously, there's been theories about like his stormtrooper legion. To be honest, a lot of people are calling them the night troopers because a lot of people believe that they are actually reanimated corpses and they're all zombies, which kind of ties into the red fabric that we see woven around them, kind of similar to what the Night Sisters wear, obviously. I would like to kind of hold off on that theory. I mean, just because we've seen Night Sister zombies so many times already. I mean, we've seen them in again Jedi Fallen Order. We've seen them in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. We've seen them in Rebels. I mean, so we and then again we've already seen them in the Ahsoka show with Maruk. Obviously, I mean, we thought he was this Inquisitor or maybe something else, but turns out that he was just held together by some sort of Night Sister magic, or he was resurrected by some Night Sister magic. So I have this theory where maybe the fabrics that are woven into these stormtroopers is some sort of armor, maybe to kind of like, patch the holes of their armor that's missing. Maybe there's some sort of Night Sister magic that kind of acts as armor, and maybe by like wearing those robes and stuff, it kind of like, helps like, protect them and stuff like that. Maybe something like that. Again, I'm really trying to like stretch here and find theories that like are not related to like, night troopers or death troopers or just zombies because I just feel like that's been overplayed and we've seen that so many times. But the way the rest of the episode plays out and the just the direction that it goes in, I think unfortunately this legion of stormtroopers that we see and Enoch himself are probably reanimated corpses and they are probably being held together by some sort of Night Sister magic.
I think that because again, I immediately thought of that theory, and because I was like, how the hell did his whole, or at least I'm assuming a large majority of that legion survive? I was like, there for what happened, there was probably few survivors, and from the looks of it and anything, and just like the amount of rations or a bunch of things going through my head, and I was like, okay, yeah, like Night Sister magic, like that's something they're gonna bring in, and when I thought of that, I was thinking about honestly when they were bringing out the stuff from the catacombs, and I was like, well, why are they going into catacombs? It was like catacombs usually where dead bodies are, and I was like, maybe I was like again, maybe they're bringing something else in where they're taking these dead bodies, and that's how he's kind of gonna regrow his empire, which I really don't want. Like if there's a couple that are zombies or whatever, cool. But I hope that it's not the whole case there. Again, I don't really know what else they're gonna bring in because I don't just want to make all of them super duper powerful. I want them to be regular stormtroopers. Maybe besides Enoch, like maybe it was something similar with Savage, where they gave him that certain thing where it made him like physically stronger and bigger. Like I was like, oh, maybe that's the case with Enoch because he is the second, and he is a little bit more intimidating, even though maybe he's not bigger in a sense. But maybe they did something like that with him, and maybe like the ones he had come forward are like the real ones or his like elite type soldier guards. So I don't know. Like I hope we kind of get that answered in the next one because again, like I know there could be anything in catacombs, but I know a lot of people are saying because of the shape of the boxes, they look like caskets, and
Mhm.
why would they be loading three
Well, I mean,
rotations worth
there's
of
this
stuff on
theory.
there?
there's this theory because obviously Thrawn has to have some sort of deal or alliance with these great mothers. So people
Sure.
believe that as part of their cargo, these, little kind of casket like things. I mean, because if you listen closely, when you see the one like pass you on the screen, like really up close, you kind of hear like shaking or screeching, like or rumbling, coming from that container. So people are thinking that these are like Night Sister maybe bodies or remains that the Great Mothers hope to reanimate in, our galaxy, to maybe use for their own purposes.
It's possible. I mean, it that would make more sense realistically, and maybe Thrawn could also see it as a way of like having an alliance and creating more power, because I'm sure he really wouldn't want to. I mean, mess with the Night Sisters. Like even when they were around, there was still some sort of agreement, because we know they can be decently powerful. So that's possibly the case because again, what other agreement would he really have? I mean, they're in another galaxy. Thrawn is gonna have no quarrel in that galaxy really. He kind of has no point once he gets out of it. So it'll definitely be very interesting to see, and I hope they answer that question in the next episode and they'll keep us waiting. But I think there's just a bunch of things you can kind of try to play around with in your head.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, there's some things that are still left, for question, but just like, very small things like obviously, there's a whole system, for like an Imperial Star Destroyer, so where is, his bridge command, are there any Imperial officers left? I mean, because obviously there's got to be a whole crew on the Chimera, including the stormtroopers and everything. So I mean, are there other people still alive that we haven't seen? Like how is the Chimera still operational? Usually Thrawn had like a squad of Death Troopers with him. Does he have any of his Death Troopers? So just like a few like bits here and there that like are left unanswered, but hopefully will be answered in these next two episodes. But overall, I thought the introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn, I thought it was good. Um, I mean, I think it was just almost just as good as maybe the arrival of Anakin Skywalker. To be honest, I mean, obviously, I think there was more hype around Anakin because of obviously all the Clone Boys. But I think the arrival of Grand Admiral Thrawn was just as good. And I mean, I was worried by this because obviously, if you're going to have two great reveals back to back, I mean, how can you top one or the other? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like for some people, there wasn't that much hype around his return because of what they saw in episode five. Like, I really thought we were not going to see Thrawn until like maybe next episode. I was actually kind of shocked when they decided to introduce him this episode, and obviously, I was even more shocked when they decided to introduce another character towards the end of the episode because I just felt like it was a little bit rushed. Because again, you're just coming off this high from this like epic Clone Wars flashback, so, I was worried that some people were just going to be like, oh, okay, whatever, it's Thrawn. I don't know who that, like, some people might be like, oh, well, I don't even know who he is. And then other people might just be like, oh, well, I don't really care. It's whatever.
I think it's like because again, one of the things I saw is like episode 5 was for the Clone Wars fans, episode 6 was for the Rebels fans, but obviously we're fans of both. So I thought both introductions were great in their own parts. Thrawn's entrance was what I would expect Thrawn's entrance to be if we ever saw him again, and that's kind of what it was. But I know people were waiting years and years since Rebels ended to see Thrawn again. So I wonder how that was for them. I wonder if, last episode took away from this. And the other character reveal, like you said earlier, gave very different vibes, and that I was honestly very surprised with, and I didn't want to see for. I honestly did not think it was going to happen on this show, or I did not want to see until probably the last episode. Um, but I think that's also kind of comes in hand with this show only being 8 episodes long. If this show was 10 episodes long, I guarantee there would have been a 1.5, if not 2, gap episode in between 5 and like 7, and then introduce Thrawn and so and so. But I think also since it is 8 episodes, they're like, okay, we have this amazing flashback. This is Ahsoka, Anakin, blah blah blah. Okay, now this is what's going on. This is the big bad. He's back. We know he means business. Now the last 2 episodes gotta, we're gonna figure out how to get back, and then we're gonna figure out, oh shit, Thrawn's back. What's gonna happen? So I think that's why they did it in this episode, and they did it the way they did. But I think they did good. I got to give props to them. But again, it wasn't. as big as a shock to me. I mean, I really like Thrawn, and I think he's one of the best bads of the Star Wars universe. But maybe it's because I didn't rewatch Rebels, even though I loved Rebels, and I did rewatch it a couple of times, and I was in the process of rewatching it. It didn't hit me as much, but it didn't mean it didn't take it away. And I think again, casual fans of the show probably could really care less, in a certain sense, because you really got to watch Rebels to appreciate Thrawn. And if they didn't, I think it's just like, oh, some random, bad guy that looks cool. Some blue guy with red eyes, it's gonna look cool regardless.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, for the regular fans, or hardcore fans, I think it did him justice for sure. Like, I didn't really expect anything else. In a sense, I didn't expect any grand thing. I mean, it was pretty grand, honestly, for what it could have been, and I think they did. I think they did a good job with it.
Well, as a hardcore Star Wars fan myself, Thrawn definitely has become one of my favorite characters. I did really enjoy reading his newest trilogy, his new canon trilogy, which basically takes place during the Star Wars Rebels, time. I guess, when it comes to the timeline. So, I mean, again, if you haven't read those, I mean, there are amazing audiobook versions of them, and they're really actually cool to listen to. I think you would enjoy listening to them while you're at work, to be honest. So you should definitely check them out. I hope to read his like prequel trilogy, which because I just want to learn more about him, to be honest. So that's when he was still part of the Chiss Ascendancy, and like before he was sent on his mission, like to infiltrate, the Galactic Empire and stuff like that. It just overall, like the books really do him justice. I mean, that's how the character was created. So just highly recommend you read those books. Um, but with that being said, like I said, I thought this was a great introduction. I know everybody was hyped about it. I mean, I've seen TikToks and just reels on social media about how excited people were for his return. Um, and I think the guy that is portraying him, I mean, not only did he voice him in Star Wars Rebels, but I think he's doing a good job so far of portraying him in live action. So I mean, we'll just have to kind of hope for the best and see what happens. But quick little side tangent. Now that we've seen the Chimera, now the wheels are turning for maybe possible Lego sets that we might get for Ahsoka. That have to
That's
imagine we got the Chimera as a Lego set and it came with Thrawn and maybe like Enoch and like maybe a couple of his like cool stormtroopers.
that'd be because again, you could literally, like, I know it's not, as far as I know, it's not
But I don't think
slated.
it would be like a huge one. I mean, I could see it maybe being like a miniature scale, maybe like the size of like the ATTE that you have, like kind of maybe something along those lines.
It would either be that or the size of, like, no, it wouldn't be the size of a Tandem 4. That'd be too big. But it's a really cool ship, and I think it would definitely. I mean, this is a prime opportunity. I mean, you could get another Star Destroyer,
Well, it
an
is rumored
iconic
that there
one,
is a
and Thrawn.
possible Thrawn set coming out next year, but I mean, nothing's been declassified, so we don't know exactly what that is yet.
Realistically, at this moment, this would be the ideal set to put in Thrawn, because that's immediately what went through my head in this episode. Was the Lego sets, because I was like, oh, what could they do? Because they could even throw in a Night Sister in that set if they wanted to. Throw in some of those wonky looking stormtroopers. It would be some of the coolest minifigs you would have in a while. Plus a Thrawn that you haven't seen since Rebels, and I know the man is worth so much money in his Lego form. So that would be really cool. And I think Lego has been doing a lot of bigger sets lately. I mean, we saw that, and I think it's gonna be. I think if they do, the Ahsoka Lego sets will be some of the best like Star Wars sets in a while, especially with that ghost. Oh, is he gonna pull out the ghost? Is he gonna pull it out real quick? Oh no, it's Ahsoka. Oh, it's $5.99 pieces. Wow. Who does it come with? It comes with Ahsoka, Sabine,
It
Huang, and
comes with,
Malik.
there you go. Can you see it?
Yes. Oh, Ahsoka looks really cool. I definitely that was the one Ahsoka said that, like, I was definitely
But
gonna pick up.
speaking of the ghost, here we go.
So clean. Show me the back of it. What do the engines look like? No, it's clean. Clean.
There you go.
That definitely is a nice looking ship. I definitely will have to pick it up.
All right. Just make sure it's nice and centered. Okay. All right. Yeah. But Lego, please sponsor us.
Please, I mean, And just send us whatever, and we'll review it. I mean, I think we're a good enough platform. And once I get my room set up, and we forget it, my whole background is probably going to be Legos. I just ordered 2 Lego posters, and I can't wait to
Yeah,
frame them.
I would actually be totally down to like just talk about like maybe like upcoming Lego Star Wars sets for like 2024 and like what to expect. I mean, I think that'd be a good, cool, chill episode. So
Yeah, I mean, I would love once I get like a new room set up and everything. I want to show off my mock. I want to like show off my other sets because like I was even thinking I was like, okay, I actually have a good amount of Rebel sets, and I was like, oh, okay, I actually have a good amount of like sequel trilogy sets. To even make like a sequel trilogy mock, like especially if I get the Falcon. Like I was like, okay, I could actually make like a good one, which I will
mm,
probably get because I know it's um retiring in like a month or two, and I think Prime Day is again October 10th or 11th, so that might be the day I pick it up. If not, I found on
yeah, I
eBay
gotta pick up
something else
those
cheaper.
I gotta pick up those New Hope dioramas before they retire.
Yeah, I actually they've definitely been on sale.
Yeah, like the trench run's like $55.
Trench Run's cool. Trench Run I
Mm.
definitely recommend picking up. But enough about
Yeah,
enough about
yeah,
Lego.
little bit of a tangent there. But yeah, we do love our Lego. So
Yes, we do.
um but yeah, I mean, do you wanna continue us on with the rest of the episode?
Yeah. So shortly after we get introduced to Thrawn and everything, we see him converse between, obviously, uh, I mean, Balin and Shin are kind of more in the background. He's basically just talking to, what's her name?
Morgan
Uh,
Elsbeth.
yeah, he's basically just talking to Morgan. And we see a little bit more of that, regular Thrawn, like in just the way he talks, and that was expected. But again, like we haven't seen this man in a while, so that's just still really cool to see. And we kind of have, because when she's talking about, he talks about seeing a familiar face, in Sabine, because that was obviously one of the most prolific. I don't know,
Prolific.
yeah, yeah, that people that he fought, because he often fought against the rebels and especially the Ghost Crew, and so it's just funny to me that one of the first people he would see from the other galaxy that he knew would be Sabine, um, and he even was like, okay, like Balin promised that you could see Ezra or find Ezra or whatever, so here you go find him. We'll give
Mhm.
you a thing to ride, and we'll give you your weapons,
And
and
this kind of
have at
shows
it.
like the methodical planning that we kind of like
Hmm.
know and love. You know that the fact that he was just so willing to like just be like, oh yeah, sure, okay, you came here for this reason, okay, well here I'll give you whatever supplies you need and go find him. And
And I love how even when Shin like is questioning, she's like, well, like what, like why would you do that? And he's like, well, he's like, I am keeping her promise where I'm allowing her to see her friend, but it doesn't mean that you two can't go follow her and then kill them both if she finds him. Like,
yeah,
so it's like I like that little part of him. And even when I forgot who Morgan was talking about, but whoever she mentioned, that's again where we saw him. He was like, I need you to get me everything on this person, this,
oh well,
this, and that.
that was when the Great Mothers report that the Purgles are gonna like are entering like the space and that they sense like a Jedi or something.
Oh,
And then
okay,
that's
yeah,
when he's like, "Is that possibly Ahsoka Tano?" And then that's when he's like, "I need everything I need to know about her culture, where she's from, who her master was." This, and again, this is the classic Thrawn that we've seen because we know that Thrawn is a very, um, like he's an art historian pretty much. I mean,
yeah,
he analyzes his enemies by looking at their art, looking at their culture, looking at their customs. And again, I mean, we've seen that all throughout the Thrawn book trilogies. We've seen that in Star Wars Rebels, especially when he kind of like intersects the Twi'lek culture. When he takes Hera's like little ceremonial family thing. It has the name. I'm just forgetting what's
yeah. I
called.
don't remember the
Is it a
name.
lake? No, no, it's not. I don't know. I'm forgetting the name of it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so again, we see that he takes very important and very important detail to that. So again, it is going to be interesting though. I want to see how they handle it. when he finds out that Anakin Skywalker was her master, because in one of the Thrawn trilogy books, one of the new ones in the second book, it's all about how Thrawn actually met Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars.
Really?
And then that book basically is like a parallel between when he knew Anakin as Anakin, and then because he's basically on a mission with Darth Vader, and basically the mission is taking them kind of like back into the past, where like they visited this planet before, but last time they were here, they were Thrawn and Anakin Skywalker. Now they're Thrawn and Darth Vader. So it kind of
Mm,
cuts back and forth to when they knew each other in different time periods. So I'm just curious to see like how he's gonna maybe use that information to maybe like do some like psychological thing on her or whatever. I mean, it would just be a cool call to the books. I mean, because obviously, again, those books are canon. They happened during Star Wars Rebels, so it would be cool to see like if that was integrated into his character in live action. It was a little bit of a fight going on. Ooh, sorry, I'm watching football in the background. Um,
no.
but yeah, no, I mean, I thought that you know that thing was super cool. Again, we see how he's still like always thinking, always hyper analyzing things. Just thinking methodically. Um, and again that scene where he gives Sabine all her supplies and stuff. I mean, we see Enoch again, and like he just sounds super cool. He's like,
I
basically
love
he's
what he
like
says.
he was basically just like he's like many like wanderers and bandits like traverse these lands like like tread carefully like die well or something, and it's just like
Yeah,
that's totally just like such a gladiator or like Roman thing to say, just be like die well warrior and just
yeah.
like um so again, I mean, we see that that's pretty cool. And then as you mentioned, I mean, we see Thrawn is, starting to kind of turn his wheels. He has some plans in place. And again, like you said, I mean, even though he's going to let Sabine go see Ezra and find Ezra, it's not going to be as happy as an ending as she thinks it is, because he's going to send Balin and Shin to basically find both of them and take care of them. And if we get some lightsaber scenes between Ezra and, either Shin or Balin, it's going to be pretty cool. Okay. I mean,
I
like it'll
really
be
want
cool
to
to see our
see
boy
that.
in action again. All right. So, um, but yeah, I mean, so to kind of to pick up, where you were talking about. So, we see that Sabine is, she has her howler, she has her supplies, and now she's on her way to find Ezra. And we see that she stops at this kind of like, weird looking rock formation. And, she pulls out one of those like giant, like white box things that, again, is a callback to, an episode or two ago when Hera was, using that to look for Ahsoka on Cetos. That's like a classic callback to Empire Strikes Back when Han is using it to find Luke on
Mm,
Hoth. So we see that this thing has been in Star Wars for a while.
yeah,
It's like just some sort of like massive GPS.
yeah. It's like a Star Wars binocular GPS thingy mabobber. Like,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
knows?
Which is, I mean, you would think they would have smaller versions, but nope. I guess it has to be like the size
You
of like a
think there would
freaking
be an
laptop or
easier way,
something. Yeah,
Like, no, let me pull out my, portable toaster and like just try to get a signal.
yeah. But we see that as she's trying to find a signal and she feels like she has something, she's actually picking up the signal of these marauders. Which one I think they actually looked pretty cool.
They
Um,
did.
and then we see that at first she's kind of getting her ass kicked a little bit, to be honest. Like she's getting like
Yeah,
shots like left and right. She's like on the back foot, and then she's like, "All right, well, you know what? I guess I got to pull out the lightsaber." And which again, it's funny because it goes to show that Mandalorians are very well known for being good with their weapons, but we see that she's still struggling with her like Mandalorian-esque weapons, with her blasters and
we
her,
did see
and her
before
wrist
that.
gadgets and stuff like that.
That she was kind of pulling back out, like, she was using some of her whatever came out the wrist, like to rope up the guy, but she was still getting like it gave me like what the Mandalorian was in, like, kind of when he first got his Beskar armor, because like he wouldn't care to really get shot left and right, and she was kind of getting shot left and right, even
Yeah,
when she was kind of tying them up, and it wasn't really until she's like, God, pull out the goddamn lightsaber, and
yeah.
and even then, even though she was like kicking ass after that, it's like we still see a struggle, and it's just very interesting that she hasn't really picked back up on her Mandalorian ways like
Mhm.
completely yet, especially after a couple episodes.
Yeah. And I mean, this is like where one of my first little nitpick things come in. Again, it doesn't take away from the episode, but as she's fighting these marauders, we see that she clashes a couple of times with their weapons, and we see that, when the metal of their spears or whatever weapons they were using clashes with her lightsaber, that they don't break. I mean, you could easily tell that they bounce off of one another. The only time that, their weapon breaks is when she slashes the wood in half, and then like, the guy runs away. So again, this takes place in another galaxy. There might be other metals in other galaxies that are just as strong as kyber crystals and lightsabers. But again, it was kind of just one of those things where I was like, up. I noticed that, like, that's kind of interesting. I mean, again, it doesn't deduct points for me. It doesn't take away from the episode. But I was just like, huh. Because I was like, the only metal that we know, like, is Beskar, that could basically hold up against a lightsaber. And these marauders, I mean, they're not like professional soldiers, they're just bandits, have a metal that is just as strong as a kyber crystal. So it's like, there might be like legit other metals or, substances in other galaxies that are just as strong and we just don't know about it. Maybe we're being introduced to one for the very first time. So that's something to think about. But regardless, she defeats the Marauders and everything. And then she's back, to her search for Ezra. You have that kind of cute but not necessary scene with her and the Howler. Like
Oh, come
when
on, I liked
when
it. It was cool.
I mean, it was cool. I was just kind of confused on like why they added it. Because like for a part of me was like, are they just doing it to maybe like add a couple minutes like onto the episode? Or I was just like, because it was cute. I mean, because like she's
Yeah,
walking away and then the Howler's following her, and then she's like, no, stop it, and then like it runs away, and then like she
it
goes
was
off
kind of
screen, and then
like
it comes back.
it was kind of like a I don't know, maybe like a moment like that you would see between somebody in BB-8 or somebody and I don't even know like what really other animals that they've heavily focused on, but I think it was just one of those small things to also add on time, but kind of break up like part of the episode, like just show a little bit more of Sabine's character, like in the sense
Yeah.
of
And like,
I don't
maybe
know, it
just
was
to like remind people that like, oh, she's a Mandalorian, like her ancestors like are really good beast riders. So maybe it just goes to show you how fast she could develop a relationship with an animal.
yeah.
Um so but again, I mean like,
But
it was
you know what? They want us to get attached to this animal, right? Because they're just gonna kill it. I guarantee they're gonna kill it in like one of the episodes, and we're gonna be like, oh goddamn, freaking, she, him and Sabine, we're getting along good, and now it's dead.
well,
That's
you
what
know
they're
what?
gonna do. I
It does
guarantee.
it does not have a name, so I can't get too attached to it if it doesn't have a
Once she
name. Okay?
name, that's it. Once something has a name, it's dead. It's gone.
Yeah, pretty
Like
much. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty
So
much,
just please don't name it.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, we see her, kind of being followed, whatever, blah blah blah. And then she kind of like just gives in, and then she's like, all right, whatever. And then, but then like all of a sudden, like the Howler is like smelling something. So like then she starts to like kind of like follow the instincts of the animal instead of trying to, follow her own instincts, and it eventually kind of takes her to this like watering hole type place. And then all of a sudden, like, she's like looking down or whatever, and then like something's moving. And what looked like these big rocks is actually this like type of alien species that basically looks like these like kind of like giant hermit crabs almost.
Yeah, like turtle people.
Um, yeah, pretty much. Like they're like hermit people. They're literally hermits. And we see that there's like some sort of like kind of like like primitive dialogue or like just some sort of like broken up dialogue trying to be that went on between Sabine and this, hermit crab, species. And, again, whether they understood each other or not, that's a whole debate.
This is the
Um,
sorry to cut you off, but this is the conversation that we had before for about 20 minutes because he was saying like, it didn't really make sense to me that she understood this, turtle hermit crab creature. And I was like, well, no, she used context clues in terms of, the symbol she had on her shoulder. And then she was like, do you know my friend Ezra Bridger? The only other human that looks like me that's possibly out here. So I mean, whatever. We had a little quarrel about it, but we won't get into it now.
mhm.
So I mean, like you were saying, obviously they had some sort of little exchange where she was mainly trying to figure out, hey, do you know Ezra Bridger? Do
Right.
you know my friend? Is he out here? Have you
Yeah.
seen him?
Yeah. But yeah,
Uh,
basically after having a, full blown conversation with one another, they, she,
okay, understood. Just trying to figure
she
out.
eventually finds out, after having a lengthy and detailed discussion,
All right.
that, these people might know where Ezra is, because obviously these people have communicated with Ezra before. And
Ezra's a different story. No, just get on with it. Just get on with
And,
it.
and after being able to analyze and deduce, their speech pattern and have a conversation with them,
Jesus.
she finds out that these hermit crab creatures are actually kind of wearing the same rebel symbol that she's wearing. And the hermit
Mhm.
crab creature recognizes the pauldron, recognizes the rebel symbol on her pauldron, and he's like, "Oh, like Ezra Bridger." He's like, "I know who that is. Like, he's my homie." He's like, "Why don't I go show you where he is?" And then
Yeah.
she's like, "Wow, thanks, fam." And, and they basically begin their journey um, over to the hermit crab village. But before we continue more on that, we need to touch upon Balin and Shin before we forget,
Yeah.
because I mean we're already towards the end of the episode already. Um, so it kind of cuts back to Balin and Shin, and they're kind of looking at the aftermath of the battle between Sabine and the Marauders and everything. And Shin's just kind of over there, kicking a dead body, because just why not? Uh, and Balin is basically explaining that, like, oh, this Ezra Bridger guy is a like class of Jedi that have been trained in the wild, as he calls it, basically away from the Jedi Temple.
I
Um,
think they called it like a Pokin or some with a B.
Yeah, like he did give it he did give it like a very specific name. But yeah, exactly. Like basically just a Jedi that, has been born and raised and, taught in the wild, away from the Jedi Temple. And he kind of alludes to this plan. Basically, saying, I mean, I think he touched upon this earlier in the episode, but I mean,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it now. How there's always a constant cycle within the Star Wars universe, right? There's a organization that rises, that is at its height, and then it falls, and then another one takes its place, and then that one falls, another one takes its place, and so on and so forth. I mean, again, that we literally have three trilogies of the same thing happening over and over and over again. So there definitely is some sort of cycle happening here in the Star Wars universe, and he is looking for a way for that to end. Now, again, there's like multiple interpretations of what he means. Does this mean time travel? Does he want to travel back in time and maybe see if he can stop events from happening, or is there some mystical power that maybe could alter the fate of the universe or reality or something? Or, does he want to collect the Infinity Stones? I mean, I don't know. But we see that he wants to break the cycle. Basically, how Daenerys Targaryen, in Game of Thrones, wanted to break the wheel. She wanted to break the cycle of rulers and warfare and just death and over and over again. So again, we see the similarities between those two. Um, and he explains to Shin how basically she was raised and she was taught to be a version of, I guess, like the next Force user in a way. Like I
Yeah,
think he
he
was trying to
didn't
tell
say
her
like
that, like,
one
you were
side or the other.
raised and trained for like a certain reason. So obviously he's trained and he's kind of groomed her like for a specific reason. Whether he wants her to be like the next generation of Force users, or she's a valuable asset to his plan, we don't know that yet. We're gonna find out. But he's basically alluding to some sort of mystical, maybe magic, like, presence on this planet, because he's like, can't you hear it? He's like, can't you hear, like, whatever's calling to us? So like he feels this like mystical presence on the planet. And obviously, there's been like multiple theories about what this could be. Some people think, oh, maybe it's the gods of Mortis, or there's been a more interesting theory that maybe people are thinking that it's Bendu.
That's what I was
Maybe.
just about to say. Or I like not Bendu specifically, but I was like, what if it's like another version of Bendu? Like, but like, this galaxy's version, or
Mm.
as sort of, I mean, Bendu was really not one side or the other, but when you bring that up, that's, and again, nobody's gonna know who Bendu is unless you've seen, Rebels. So go watch it. Um because again,
Pause this video and then go watch it and then come
yeah,
back.
pause it and then come back. Whatever minute is probably like the hour 15th minute. Pause it now. Go watch all four seasons of Rebels, and come back and they'd be like, oh yeah, Bendu, I know him. So maybe it is that, or maybe somehow it's the planet talking. Who knows? But I did like that part because again, we don't see Balin necessarily being like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one, that's gonna overrule or overthrow. He's kind of just like, same shit happens. Why the hell haven't they figured it out? Like, just stop it. Like a part of me thinks he just wants the galaxy to kind of just go to like whatever. Like, it's just There's no one overruling power in the galaxy. It's just like kind of neutral everywhere, which would be very hard to do in a galaxy like that, obviously. But obviously, maybe there's some power there that could make it happen. So I'm interested to see what Balin's motives are, because again, realistically, if we don't see the end of his story in this series, we will most likely never know, just because of the actor's passing. And if his character was going to be in that Filoni movie, they would have to
Well,
rewrite it
I
in
think,
some
yeah, I was about
way.
to say, I think most likely if his story is not finished in this series, I mean, they're gonna have to recast him. I mean, because you need to finish this character's story regardless, just because you need to do some sort of homage to Ray Stevenson. I mean, you cannot let him do this amazing performance and then just like not finish his character. Like, even if it's not him betraying the guy, he's the one that started it, you know? So, I mean, they need to finish his story one way or another. So, whether that means they need to cast a new person or whatever. I mean, at least at the end of the day, his story will be finished. You know what I mean? You can't just leave it off and like, just oh, like, we don't know what happens now because obviously this, and this. I mean, I feel like they do deserve, or he does deserve some credit and justice. And regardless, whether his story is finished in the series or not, they just need to finish it one way or another.
Two things I want to say is, one, I like how, because in passing when he's talking to Shin, he says like it was I was around your age, or I was not much older than you, when everything kind of fell apart in terms of Order 66, and um, all that stuff. So it's like now we kind of get an idea of like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
what he could have been doing at that time.
Well, it seems like he's
He's
probably
not.
like maybe in his 20s, like maybe around the same age as Anakin
Yeah,
Skywalker. And then we also see him alluded to as a general when he meets Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's like, "Oh, General Balin Skoll, like of the Jedi Order." So it's like he could have been a general, during the Clone Wars and leading his own clone battalion, kind of similar to Anakin.
yeah,
So,
that's something
again,
we
we kind
might
of get
see.
like you just said, we get an idea of a little bit more of his backstory. Okay, so we know he was around maybe Anakin's age when Order 66 happened. We know that he was in charge of his own clone legion or battalion. So, did he get betrayed? How did he escape? So I mean, there's still questions that are left unanswered. How did he meet Shin? That hopefully will be answered. Either in the movie or in these last two episodes. Just to continue flushing out their relationship. But yeah, I mean, this episode definitely did give us some insight, but I like how it didn't explain the whole story. So there's
Yeah,
still
it's
more to
kind
kind
of
of like
just
wonder
little
about.
hint,
Because we still have no idea who Shin is, really.
Yeah,
I mean, we
she's
still
just
really
there.
don't know anything about Balin besides that he was a general in the Clone Wars and he was probably in his like mid-20s when Order 66 happened. That's it. We don't know who his master was. We don't know how he knows Anakin Skywalker or Ahsoka or whatever. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions, which again hopefully could be addressed in these last two episodes or maybe the movie. Um, but finally that conversation kind of wraps up really. So we don't really get too much with Baylan and Shin, but their conversations are important because it does
Yeah,
allude to something maybe more mystical or more powerful in the distance. So we return actually back to Sabine, and she's arrived at the village, with the other hermit crabs. And we see her, just casually having conversations with all the other, inhabitants because she can understand what they're saying. Um,
you know what this? Sorry to cut you off, but you know what this village almost reminded me of a little bit. Do you recall that episode
yes, I
in?
know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
with
It
the
gave
with
me
the with the Irish monkeys.
yes, pretty much. It gave me those vibes a little bit.
As soon as you
Um,
started explaining, I like it just clicked in my head, and I was like, "Yep, I know exactly what we're talking about."
yeah, the Irish Monkey Village. But yeah, it just reminded me of that. And a little side note too, I just want to say, I at least from the show, and when it ends, I will have a better opinion. But I feel like in a long time, Balin has really been one of those Star Wars characters that they made up, like the Mandalorian, or Kylo Ren, that has really just been like a pleasure to see, and like that they've actually like done. I mean, Kylo Ren and stuff in Mandalorian, we don't exactly know in terms of stories, I guess. But in terms of like doing this character justice, they definitely have. And I think he's definitely going to become one of the best parts about this series, whether other people agree or not. He's been great, and I hope they don't push him to the side just because Thrawn's back, and I don't think they will. I'm pretty sure he's going to play a very important part. But I just wanted to get that in there before we went on to the other parts.
Yeah, very well said. So yeah, so we see Sabine arrive at this little village, and again, it gives you those vibes from the Clone Wars, which is actually a good call, because I didn't personally think about that when I saw it, so that was a good job. It also it reminded me more of like the alien nun village that we saw like on Octu, in the Last Jedi. It was giving me like those
Oh
vibes.
yeah, yeah. You were just talking about that.
Um, like when like they're just trying to clean up their planet, and then just like Ray just keeps like destroying everything on them and just being really
Yeah.
obnoxious, because she's like swings the lightsaber like so
She could just go to like an open field. She had to stand like right next to a daycare.
yeah, she had to stand right next to right on a cliff on a pile of rocks. Like, yeah, yeah, okay.
Be as
But
a
anyway,
scene.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so it was giving me like Last Jedi vibes, like whatever. Um, and I honestly, just speaking of the Last Jedi, I was really hoping, as we'll get to it. Obviously, she's looking around, whatever, and then all of a sudden, the camera pans towards her, and then over her left shoulder, we hear, "I knew I could trust you," and then leaning against the hut is Ezra Bridger himself. He's looking a lot older, obviously. Rebels fans kind of like nodded to the fact that he looks more like his father that we've seen in the pictures. So we see that he takes after his father, obviously. Um, and yeah, he definitely looks a lot grown up. His hair is longer, his beard is longer. Um, and yeah, just kind of once he kind of says those words and they reunite and everything, that was really nice. I mean, I had a smile on my face, like, that was really nice. Because I mean, obviously they were super close
Yeah,
during Rebels and everything. They kind of had this like brother sister relationship, or if you want to have them be romantically involved, I mean, that's cool too. I mean, I just because I've heard some people say that they're like, oh, like they are kind of love each other, or they're brother and sister. I don't know. I mean, Luke and Leia were brother and sister, and look what happened. So,
yeah. That's
but yeah, then we see them reunite and everything. They're kind of back to their old ways. They're kind of like chuckling, making jokes, whatever. And when he starts to ask her about something serious, like oh, how'd you get here, or whatever, she's like, let's not talk about that. Like, let's just enjoy what we have right now. Um, and obviously alluding to the fact that Ezra does not know what she had to do to get here
yeah,
and everything, and so he's going to be in for one hell of an awakening next episode, when he finds out, basically he did everything for nothing, pretty much, when
yeah.
you
Pretty
really think
much.
about
Like
it.
his sacrifice
Um,
was meaningless
and like
in
it was
in a
nice to
way.
see like how the actor was able to get that like serious tone in, where he's like, oh, like I hope everything worked out, and he's like, everything worked out, right? And like she's
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, like it did. And like so you saw that he was able to kind of switch like to a serious note in a second, because there was a second where he's like, wait, did it actually work? Like, did I save you guys or whatever? And like when he was reassured, he's like, oh, okay, good. Like and again,
yeah,
the only thing that was missing, I was really hoping that she was actually going to return his lightsaber. I mean, I think that
yeah,
would have made that scene perfect. Similar to what Rey tried to do in Last Jedi, but instead of Luke just throwing it over the cliff, I assume Ezra probably would have would have taken it. Um, but I think that was missing. I mean, I think we could have had a little bit of piece of that. Maybe that would have just kind of put the cherry on top for that scene. Um, but you know what? Maybe they were saving that for next episode or the following episode. I mean, if we don't see this man wield his lightsaber in this show, I'm gonna be very upset, to be
I
honest.
really hope he can like rebuild it to what it was because I've always wanted to see that in live action. And I gotta say, like, from that little minute maybe we saw Ezra, I'm really liking, the
You know,
actor as of right now. I know
and
again, I was
the
telling
actor is also bilingual because he was able to speak Hermit. So,
see, I mean, it's also maybe because of his beast ability, but whatever.
well,
Um,
actually, his beast abilities, those
so
probably those
what
probably
I
just
what I, what I
geared
was
more towards
saying
like
is
primitive
what I
beasts, not
really
like alien
liked, what I
species. You
really
fucking
liked
nerd.
about that they paid attention to is he had like the two scratches on his face. If you
Oh,
notice that,
I did not notice that actually.
yeah, it's pretty subtle because of his hair.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think anybody's really like analyzing that as much, but that's something that I saw after. Actually, initially when I watched it, I noticed it, but when I saw clips on TikTok afterwards, I saw it as well. Um, but what's it called? I a lot of people were saying too. It's like, why did it take them so long to like hug? And I'm like, I just don't think that would be like Ezra at that moment to run over to her because when he left, with what happened with Thrawn, you saw a different side of him in terms of like he has to take on this responsibility. He's grown up, and I think it's also shock from both of them. I mean, everybody
Yeah, I
She
mean, it
thought
was
he
kind
was
of like the same like reunion as it was with like Ahsoka and Captain Rex. Like, I mean, they made a
yeah
couple of jokes, they smiled at each other, and then eventually they hugged. So it was like you just waited until the right moment. Like, I mean, I didn't really see a big deal in that.
yeah
Yeah,
like
it's
I saw people saying things about that, and I thought that was like a weird complaint. But since that's pretty much the close out of the episode, something I wanted to say, that a theory I saw for the upcoming episodes with whatever happens. One, I'm interested to see if Ezra actually knows about like Thrawn like being alive still, or because I hope he kind of says like what happened after they landed on the planet, because obviously they would.
yeah. It would be nice to definitely get some context to kind of like fill in the holes from like when we last saw him in Rebels to like, okay, well, what happened? Why aren't you with Thrawn anymore? Why aren't you on the Chimera? Obviously, he had to
Like,
leave
why
the
didn't you try to
Chimera.
go back and kill him? It's like, oh, you
Yeah,
used the argument
exactly.
about this and
Yeah.
that. But a lot of people are saying that like, oh, maybe he like disconnected himself from the Force, kind of like Obi-Wan did. But I really don't. I don't know if I see him doing that. Just
Yeah,
because he was
I don't
really
think so.
getting.
Just especially because he was really getting into his force
Yeah,
abilities and kind of accepting himself as like a Jedi. I really doubt that he would just pull a Luke and just be like, ah, well, I didn't feel like it anymore, so I just decided to talk to hermit crabs and, just be a
because
farmer.
because a lot of people are saying that like, oh well, how I see it playing out is Balin and Shin obviously find them, and then you got a 2-on-2 with Sabine and Ezra, but you only have one lightsaber, and they're like, oh, obviously Sabine would give it to Ezra, and he's like, oh, he's not going to know how to use it, and I was like, I don't see that happening. I was like, I don't think Ezra is this old wise man. He's only 7 years older. Yeah, 7 years is a long time, but you know, Ezra was pretty badass from the last moments we saw him, and he was definitely, and especially having 7 years with pretty much nothing to kind of intact his, force abilities, and depending on what this planet offers. I really hope we see some sort of fight sequence with him, because I just want to see. I've always wanted to see Ezra fight in live action, because he was really cool. Um, but I'm just excited to really see more of him. Again, this was something that I think could have waited till next episode, realistically, but maybe they had a plan to really
Because
show
then,
him
like,
more in the next
it's
episode.
interesting to see like what the implications of his character is going to be. Like, I mean, a lot of people have this theory that he's gonna sacrifice himself eventually, like for the greater good, and
For
like
real.
die. Um, and I don't know. I mean, it depends. I mean, we don't know
I feel like that'd be
how the
such
rest
a
of this series is gonna end, whatever. But I mean, I wouldn't put it behind Ezra to sacrifice himself for the people that he loves. But then at the end of the day, if they actually went a route like that, it would just not really make too much sense because why introduce him anyway if you're just gonna kill him off? You know,
yeah.
I
Why?
mean, I don't
Yeah,
want him getting the Luke. Honestly, I do not want him getting the Luke Skywalker treatment. I do not want him, just sulking around and being like, oh, I don't want to be a Jedi anymore. It's stupid. And then like, just like, do one thing and then just die. I, I mean, like, I need this guy like back in action. Like I don't want him going and sucking on like a hermit crab titty for some milk. I mean, I need this man to be productive.
yeah. I mean, I feel like, especially with Filoni and Rebels being important to him, I would assume he would, now that he has both Ezra and Thrawn back. Um, I mean, he's got everything in live action to fully cook now, and I think all the actors and actresses are going to do a great job. So I'm definitely interested to see, because again, I don't know if any of the last two episodes are an hour long, because again, like, and you have to think this was technically a 40 something minute episode. It was like 37 minutes,
Yeah.
so it's like,
I mean,
what are you
I
going to
definitely
throw
think
in
the last episode will probably be like at least an hour long. I mean,
there?
maybe next week's will be like 40, 45 minutes, maybe. Hopefully.
I hope both of them are an hour, but
I mean,
yeah.
especially when it's like an 8 episode series. I mean, like you're gonna give us like two like half an hour episodes to end the series. Like really? Like I mean, they gotta be at least like 45 minutes or more.
Yeah, because again, if this is the only season we get and we don't see any of these characters again until that Filoni movie, that will suck. That'll
Yeah.
that'll be 2 years, maybe more,
Yeah,
depending
and
on
I
what
just
happens.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I feel like it's gonna be hard to like just have all this stuff happen and be like, oh, okay, well now you gotta wait 2 years.
You can't have that
Like
much of a
it
gap.
would make some more sense if like this movie was coming out in like a few months. So it's like at least we only had a few months to kind of wait, in between. But it's like obviously there are going to be other Star Wars projects that come out before that, and it's like I mean the hype for it. I mean I'm sure will still be there, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like they should have started with the Dave Filoni movie, when it came to these new Star Wars movies, and they should have had it done as soon as possible, like maybe at least next year or something like that.
I mean, unless he's gonna start combining his universes with like the Mandalorian, and he'll bring in the Ahsoka characters in that. But
Yeah.
I feel like then those shows are just gonna become too much. It's like we don't.
Well, I mean, all of
Again,
his
not
shows
trying.
are basically being combined in this movie, so we know that all these characters are going to come together one way or another.
Yeah, it just annoys me when, like, for example, say it's gonna be another Book of Boba Fett situation where you have three good episodes that are about Boba Fett, stuff like that. You really enjoy them, and then the next five are just Star Wars characters, which cool, love it. Some of them are good, some of them were not so good, but I don't want you to make this hodgepodge thing just because you're leading up to the
Yeah,
movie. That's why I honestly hope they do another season of this, whether it's another 8 episodes, whether it's freaking 4 episodes. I don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next two, episodes. Like, it could go balls to the wall, and you could see a lot of shit. But most likely, obviously, we know Thrawn gets on that ship, so he's gonna end up back in the other galaxy. I'm assuming. Maybe not. We don't know. And obviously, you're gonna have to see Ahsoka again in the next episode. I mean, she can't be out of 2 episodes for an 8 episode thing. So I would assuming she gets there, because that's what a lot of people are theorizing too. Bailey and Shin are gonna find them. They're gonna fight. Ahsoka's gonna come in last minute and save them or stop them or capture one. I don't know. It might happen, might not, and we'll see. I think Ezra could take on Balin and Shin if he had to. But since
yeah.
he is
Well,
a
I
little
mean,
more speed,
I think if he took on Shin, he would. I think even if he's been gone for 7 years, I think he would easily beat her.
yeah,
I think it would be.
I think he'd be tougher against Balin, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he
he
would
hold his
easily
own
beat her,
a
like
little
in the
more.
sense where he'd like beat her in like 10 seconds. Like I think it would be a fight, but I think he would still come out on top, obviously.
Yeah,
With Balin, it would be a different story. I mean, Ezra is good, but we really haven't seen him go up against too many lightsaber combatants, to be
yeah.
honest. We've seen him take on a few Inquisitors, but other than that, that's really it. I mean, he really hasn't taken on anybody via lightsaber combat before, so we don't know how he is as a duelist.
Honestly, what I would really
He
love.
was more in tune with the Force, which is why he obviously had the green lightsaber crystal.
Speaking of that, what I would really love is I would just love some sort of thing where maybe they show the time passing, and somehow he was able to communicate with Kanan, or they do a flashback. Just because I feel like that would be like the cherry on top for everything that they've given us in this series. Like, really depending on how, and we could definitely have a conversation about it after this. Really depending on how this series ends, it will be one of the better Star Wars series, if not one of the best. Like, in my opinion, obviously you could talk live action and you could talk animated at the same time, but not getting ahead of myself yet. But I, even though this was a slow episode and maybe there have been some more things you could kind of nitpick and point out, I just thought they've been doing, really good since episode 3, and they've been doing consistently well and or good or even great. And I think it'll continue on for 7 and 8, just because now it's like endless possibility. Now, like, everybody's back, it's like throw them all in. Have a mosh posh of shit going on. You got endless possibility now, and I hope and I believe Dave Filoni will continue to deliver.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think that's a great way to kind of summarize, our end of the episode really. Where, like I said, it was a good episode. There were some things that maybe could have been a little bit better, but really nothing again, like nothing too major. Um, and I definitely think that they kept the momentum going. Again, it wasn't like, busting out of the gate like bingo bango, like, oh my God. But you know what?
Yeah.
They kept the momentum going. Like, it was episode 5 was hyped. This episode was hyped. I mean, again, the entrance of the Chimera, the entrance of Grand Admiral Thrawn was awesome. The, reveal of Ezra and them reuniting was really touching and everything. So I think they did just enough in this episode where they have these final 2 episodes just to set up like everything. And I think the last 2 episodes will be really good, and I think they will make or break the show. Like I said, if they are just average and they are just good episodes, this is going to be a B tier show. If they are phenomenal and they are really good and they are like 9 out of 10, 9.5, this is going to be an A tier show. I mean, it is already better than the Book of Boba Fett, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It's better than Star Wars: The Bad Batch. It's better than Star Wars Resistance. Um, So again, we already see, a handful of shows. I mean, it's better than Visions, obviously, Star Wars Visions. Um, so, again, we're seeing, the makings of a possible A-tier show to rival the likes of Andor and The Mandalorian. So, we'll see if they could possibly get it done. But, yeah, I mean, again, great show, great episode. Again, besides, these little stupid little nitpick things, I mean, other than that, it was really a great episode. And yeah, I mean, it's great to see Ezra finally returns, and it's great to see Grand Admiral Thrawn returned, and just left with a lot of questions, but also left with a lot of excitement. And I cannot wait for next Tuesday. Also, I actually saw this TikTok of this girl. She had like a wanted poster up for Ezra, and it was like day like 2000 and like whatever, like missing, like days missing. And then when that episode aired, she put like the zero sticker because she's like, "Oh, we found Ezra."
That's really cool. Damn, 2,000 selling days. Imagine if she was
Yeah.
actually counting.
That actually is
That's,
really cool when you actually think about it. Like if they were actually counting from the end of it, they're like, okay, well, that's actually
I
really
mean,
cool now that I
Rebels
think
was
about it.
2018, so I mean, it's probably definitely
So they've been
around
basically
2,000
counting
some
for like
days.
5 years, pretty much. So I
That's
think the math would actually make sense if you added it all up.
a little. If you guys didn't notice in this episode, we also saw Jabba the Hutt and Lando Calrissian. So I
I,
mean, like
I
just we're eating good.
seriously, Dave Filoni is feeding us. Oh my God.
Exactly, and
Um,
I'm telling you, the man cooks. Man, got to be your personal chef. I mean, I know he's mine. Um, but also, I just quick, I wanted to give a shout out. Our first Ahsoka episode, the episode 1 through 3 discussion, has now become in our top 10 episodes. It is actually tied with like the top 10, 9, 8, and 7. I think are all around the same amount of people. So it's one of our top episodes. Which I was very surprised that that one got the most. But I guess you guys like longer episodes and stuff. Again, I always tell you to comment and let us know, but nobody really ever does. So please start doing that because I genuinely want to hear about it. What do
it's like
you
we're kind of
guys
just like
enjoy
wasting our
more?
breath at this moment. Just nobody, nobody ever does it.
I can do the math and figure out, oh, these episodes do an average better, but our podcast is kind of all over the place. So it's like, please let us know what you actually like. It seems like you've been coming back for the Ahsoka episodes, so I guess you don't mind us talking about Ahsoka, and I hope you won't mind us talking about Star Wars, because my plan is to continue talking about Star Wars for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Obviously there'll be other things here and there. I know we got our 2-year anniversary of this podcast coming up too, so that's another big milestone for us. And obviously, Halloween season around the corner. But we're gonna continue to be on the Star Wars kick, especially with we got the next Star Wars project I believe would be Rebel Moon coming out.
Mhm.
And I'm not really sure the next project after that is the Bad Batch maybe.
Yeah,
I
well, I
don't
mean,
even
we'll have
know.
some other projects. I mean, I think we'll have season 2 of Tales of the Jedi coming out.
Oh
Eventually we'll
yeah.
have Skeleton Crew coming out. Star Wars Acolyte would also be one, but I think that's been pushed back.
I honestly
So,
forgot Acolyte. I was excited for it,
and
and I'm
obviously there's
obviously
other
happy.
projects that we can go and revisit. I mean, like, we
Yeah.
haven't talked about Andor. We really haven't talked about
Oh,
the
I
Mandalorian. We haven't
wanted
talked about the Book of
to.
Boba Fett.
Now that we're talking about that, for a while they were supposed to be making a Lando Calrissian show with Donald Glover, the guy that played Lando in the Solo movie. Now it's been confirmed that it's going to be turned into a movie, which will be
I
very
think that's actually the smarter move because I think it would do
yeah.
better as a movie than it would as a TV show.
Which honestly, it'll basically if they do that, I think it'll be like another Solo. And honestly, I would want to see what's his name come back as Han Solo. If
Mhm.
they did that, just because I like this portrayal, and it's another Star Wars character we know
He
in the
also
universe.
did really well in the Oppenheimer movie recently.
Oh, he was in it.
Mhm.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry for the actor, I don't know your name, but that's actually kind of exciting because that's another Star Wars movie we get, and I like Lando Calrissian, and I think Donald Glover did a good job.
It
And
would
whether
be
it's
interesting to
from
see
him
like
or
how much they could say about him because I mean he's a well-known character, but I never thought he was a well-beloved character. Like people liked him, but I didn't think people like loved him where they were like, "Oh yes, we need like a Lando
yeah,
Calrissian project now,"
I think a part of it is kind of annoying because it's like they're
I
gonna
mean,
do a
like if it's the
Lando
same
movie
thing as like
before they do.
Solo, but just Lando, I mean, I think it's gonna be like a solid like C tier movie. Like I think it's gonna be like
Yeah,
probably one of the lower rated Star Wars movies, to be
like
honest.
just make it like another fun kind of like random Star Wars movie set in the Star Wars universe with a couple characters we know, and it'll do well. But if you do a Lando movie, you could definitely do a couple of other Star Wars character movies. Disney or whoever's making it. I mean, that rated R Vader one is, that would bring you some big money. I mean, that would rival Oppenheimer, for sure. If not, I think it would be I think it would be the highest R-rated grossing movie of all time, maybe just behind Deadpool.
Yeah.
So come on, Disney, you got all the stuff. Hayden's in his prime again. Freaking bring that man in, let him cook, let him just. I mean, hell, you don't even need to like have a movie. You just need live action scenes of him fighting like Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, the redo the Duel of Mustafar, bring
Oh,
Clone Wars in
this
again.
brings up a good point. I forgot. I don't know if you know, but I forgot to tell you that one of the possibly leaked Star Wars Lego sets for next year is going to be a hallway scene with Darth Vader and rebel troopers.
Yeah, I told you about that. It's confirmed. It's gonna be like around $55. It's
Yeah.
gonna come
Well,
with Vader.
they
These
classify it as like a
stormtroopers and whatnot.
diorama, so that'll be pretty cool.
So I'm assuming it's gonna be similar to the Luke one, maybe a little bigger. And I really hope like I told you, it includes a door function. With like where if you have rebel troopers laying around, the only other rebel troopers I actually have are from my Tandem 4. I know there was a battle pack a while ago, but they're kind of hard to get a hold of. So that'll be kind of cool. And maybe it'd be cool if they could make like a stormtrooper and a rebel battle pack that kind of rival those, so you can add more to the scene.
Mhm.
But that's really cool. Lego's going to be doing a lot, and like we were talking about, they're going to be doing Phantom Phantom One. They're going to be doing 20th anniversary sets for the Phantom Menace,
25th.
episode 1. Huh?
25th.
It's 25th. I thought it was 20. No, is
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Damn, shit.
Yep.
Old.
Yep.
Yeah, 25th anniversary, I guess. Oh, yeah, because it came
Well,
out.
you take 2000, you take 2024, that's 24, then you add another year, that's 25.
Yeah, I thought it came out in '99, and I was
It
like,
did.
no,
It came out in
it would have
99.
been your age.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Exactly.
but
God, I'm as old as the Phantom Menace movie.
that's crazy. So it's like, now I don't even know how old you are. It's like, how old is Phantom Menace? Oh, okay, he's 34.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's gonna be cool. Again, like if you guys aren't into Lego, we both definitely suggest. We were into it when we were kids, and I kind of got out of it for a little bit, and I really wish I didn't, because I would have made bank if I bought those sets. And there were some sets I definitely regret throwing away or getting rid of in my teenage angst years. So definitely, again, it's a fun hobby to do, and it looks super cool on your shelves. And there's gonna be a lot of anniversary sets coming up, because this like a lot of Star Wars stuff is getting anniversaries. I mean, at this point, the Mandalorian is gonna have like an anniversary set at some point. I don't even know when it came out. But Lego, if you're out there, make more like sets for your shows. Like you have like 2 Bad Batch sets, and like
Yeah.
you could have had so many clone sets from the
But the
Bad
thing
Batch.
is that like the sets that they do for the shows are like terrible, except for the Mandalorian. I mean, because they just choose the worst stuff to make their sets on for the shows.
Ahsoka's good. Ahsoka's
Well, yeah,
good.
I mean, besides the recent Ahsoka
But
show, I
it's
mean,
like
that's
Clone Wars. It's like you have the anniversary of the movie. Remake the Twilight. People are gonna buy it. Like, or
I don't
just
know.
freaking more walkers, more this. I mean, you got the Clone Boys out there. They're gonna freaking eat up every god. They will sit there and say, "I hate the way these Lego clones look because of their helmet or whatever." Then they'll go and buy 35 battle packs. I mean, it's literally with the guy I watch. Will say, I hate the look of it. Yeah, I bought 10 ATEs like the other day. It's like, fucking why? You hate it, so why would you buy the set? Like, Lego, you're gonna make money if you put it in people's ears. So that'll be fun, and we'll talk about that in another episode for sure. And definitely, once, like I think I said earlier in the episode, once I get my room set up, I want to do like a little tour. Like, oh, these are my posters. These are my Legos. This is.
like, hey
I'm gonna have a
guys,
lot of cool shit.
he's like, hey guys, welcome to my life. Here's my crib.
Because I definitely am. I used to be. I mean, I'm still into Funko, but I've definitely gone away from Funko a little bit and gotten more back into Lego, because even though it's more of an expensive hobby, it's 100% worth it, especially
Yeah,
from like a
like to be
point of
honest,
view.
I'd rather save my money up for like a Lego than like just buy Funko. I mean, the only Funkos that I'm picking up for the rest of the year, as far as I'm concerned, is anything that comes out for the Ahsoka series. But even then, I mean, I'm not picking them up all at once. I mean, I'll pick
Yeah,
those up like throughout the remainder of the year. I mean, it's not a big deal. So,
yeah, for sure.
but yeah, all right. So with that little tangent said and done, I think this brings us to the end of our conversation on Ahsoka episode 6, far, far away. And it was actually funny because it cut to an interview during Star Wars celebrations, and Dave Filoni was like, "Do you want to know where Ezra is?" And he was like, "Far, far away." So it's like he actually told us where he was. Like,
Man, it was in front of us the whole time.
yeah, yeah,
That's
that's pretty
Filoni.
cool. Yeah, that's why I love Star Wars, man. It's great.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we're seeing a resurface of Star Wars, which I love. I mean, I feel like nobody has really felt like this since The Mandalorian came out. Because I remember when The Mandalorian first came out and listening to a podcast. I don't remember their name, but they were great, and it was because they were a bunch of old guys, not old guys, but like 40, 50-year-old guys that grew up with the original trilogy, talking about Star Wars, and it was The Mandalorian. And this is kind of bringing us back to like that time. Like you have a lot of besides this and the Clone Wars. I
Right.
feel like this is one of the most times where you have so much Star Wars stuff like on my For You page, a lot of fans coming back out, and I think Star Wars is gonna have a bright future because after it was the sequels for a while. Those were the Star Wars projects coming out. Obviously, you had the disappointment behind that. Um, I would honestly kind of like low key. A part of me wants because Disney's got all the goddamn money in the world, and you already got Galaxy's Edge. Should redo the sequels. Just whoop, rewind it, and even if it's just strictly Disney Plus, like just redo it. Like I just want to see, hey, this one director directs all the things. Let's see how because if you
I mean,
just
honestly, either that or just hopefully, like, whatever Dave Filoni has cooking up, like maybe the sequels will be part of like a different timeline, so maybe they'll allow Star Wars fans to be like, oh, well, I don't like that timeline, so I'm gonna go to this timeline or
it just
whatever.
sucks because like I like Kylo, like and
Mhm.
I like I want to see a little bit more of him, and I had hope for Finn in it, but that's something when we get into our reviews we'll get into more. But
Yeah,
Disney, if you're out there listening, because I know you listen to us, you're definitely on my laptop right now. Like, don't even act like you're not. I definitely have like a Disney Plus app open, so yeah, you're watching me. Yeah, my
it's like,
camera's
oh,
on.
look
It's
at that, look
recording.
look at Disney Plus commercial. It's like they're
Yeah,
hearing us.
exactly. I guarantee. Watch. I'm gonna switch my tab and go to Google right now. Hold on. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Mississippi River. Up, up,
Mississippi
up,
River.
up, up, up. What is this? Up, up, up. What is this? Up, up, up. Disney. Up, up. Movies. Disney. Oh, what is that? Buy with Microsoft. Is that Yoda? Oh, is that Star Wars? Oh, is that a Death Trooper? Oh, is that a Lego clone set that we were literally just talking about? Wow, what are the odds of that computer? Crazy. I swear to God. Um, but yeah, I don't even know what we were kind of talking about. We kind of just got on a Star Wars rant. But if you guys couldn't figure out, we're pretty much done with the episode. We're just talking now.
Yeah, we wrapped up the episode like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, you guys like the long episodes. I mean, this is the stuff we usually talk about. So I mean, we'll do a day in our life of just random crap, and we'll gladly talk about it.
Yeah, this is
Again,
this
let us
this is the
know. You
extended
just
cut.
gotta type, on Instagram, or I put the polls on
Yeah,
Spotify, and
it's
I know
funny. They
87%
take
of you
it's funny because like people take like an hour and a half, maybe even longer to listen to these episodes, but it takes like 2 seconds just to like click the poll,
guys.
or
I
type
literally, I
something.
literally put a poll. Did you like the episode? Yes or no? And then I put a question. Like, if you don't, like,
It's not
just
like a
come
fucking
on.
math equation. Like it's not that it's not that hard.
If you sit there for an hour and a half, I just ask for you to click yes or no. Like, you could hate the episode. I just want to know. Like, that's how people grow and they do that stuff. And I feel like we have a good audience where we would interact. So
It's like
interact.
it's like now we're gonna post this episode and everybody's just gonna be like, nope, 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 nope.
Hey, at least see. Then I know you're listening. So if that happens, you're gonna get an earful the next episode. So just wait. Just wait.
It's like I know, I can see you. I'm looking at you right now. I know you're listening.
Exactly. I know you user 2141. Like oh god, fun times here at Tucson Podcast.
It's like I know you're listening, Darth Daddy 2369.
I really hope one of our listeners is that we're just like Obi Swole Kenobi or like some crap like
It's like Jar Jar Binky Milky.
if I ever like click on somebody's comment and it's just like a thick ass Jar Jar like lactating, I might just lose. I don't even know. I wonder if a picture like that exists on the internet, but my search history will not contain thick Jar Jar. Like I can't
Oh
do that
God. Oh.
sometimes.
All right. Well, with that being said, I think it's finally time to wrap up this episode before we just keep talking about random stuff, and then next thing you know, this is like a 3-hour recording. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, thank you guys for listening to our lovely random tangents about Star Wars, and also watching our episode about Star Wars. So as you can see, this is definitely a Star Wars themed episode. If you haven't found out, already.
pretty
Um,
much.
I mean, after listening for like an hour and a half, if you can't figure out this is Star Wars, I
Also, if you
don't know,
clicked
I
on
don't
the
know what to tell
video, it
you.
most likely would have said Ahsoka episode 6 discussion. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for coming out and listening to another one of our lovely episodes. As always, this is a pleasure to do, and it's nice to kind of stay on top of this like, little series that we have going on with Ahsoka and everything. And it's really fun to kind of sit down each week and find out what we think about the episode and what we're looking forward to. And like I said, we'll have to reconvene next week and see what we thought of episode 7. So,
yeah,
with this episode, like I said, there's only 2 more episodes, guys, and then, by like the second week or the first week of October, like, it's going to be over. And then we're not really going to have any Star Wars for a while. So that will be kind of disappointing. But you
I'll
know
just
what? I
rewatch
mean,
Disney
at
Clone
least
Wars.
with Two Sons podcast, if you still want, Star Wars, through the rest of the year, we'll be talking about Star Wars. So, by all means, come check us out. But
Yeah.
and just because unfortunately there's really nothing else coming out for the rest of the year. I mean, so we're
There
kind
was
of
a
just
Hunger Games trailer, but again, I'm not the hugest Hunger Games
yeah,
fan.
yeah.
We're
And I
gonna
mean,
just
at the
go
end of
with
the
it.
day, the only thing that we would really do is maybe like do like trailer breakdowns and maybe just react to trailers. I mean, there's really not much we could
Like
cover, to
always
be
do.
honest. Um, and a part of me feels weary about covering like movies and stuff because I mean I think this the Ahsoka series is a little bit different. But I mean there's nothing wrong with like breaking down the trailers at least or just kind of like talking about what we
Yeah.
hope to see. So we might just do episodes about that. Because I think, going in and talking about a whole movie is kind of just not uh, currently, correct right now with what's going
Yeah.
on. So I think if we just did like a trailer breakdown and then maybe we talked about it, I mean that would obviously be a little bit better.
Okay.
But yeah, but obviously we got some interesting stuff. We got some interesting ideas coming to this podcast. So stay tuned for the rest of our Ahsoka series, and for the immediate future. But with that
Mhm.
being said, thank you guys once again for listening to our Ahsoka episode 6 breakdown and discussion. So if
Mhm.
you want more material outside of YouTube or Spotify, you could find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all under Two Sons Podcast. That's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. We are also on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Jabba's Lounge. Honestly, like I'm kind of thinking about maybe changing the name back just to Two Sons Podcast because I'm kind of not really feeling the Jabba's Lounge anymore, but I haven't decided yet. Maybe we'll talk off camera. Maybe there's like something else I can name it to or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah. But for now, obviously it is Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Jabba's Lounge. So check us out there. We always post when we release the episodes and everything. And, sometimes we'll just post some like random stuff on there. I mean, Joey's been very active on Twitter recently, just kind of talking about the episodes and stuff. So again, I mean, I see people view those, but nobody talks to him. So I mean, please talk to
Yeah.
him. I mean, he's kind of lonely, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
not talking to me. It's like, how am I supposed to be a host and talk to you guys if nobody
exactly.
talks to
I
me?
mean,
It's like,
same on
then I'm just
Instagram and
crazy.
Facebook, guys. I mean, you could talk to him. I mean, he doesn't bite. I promise.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, exactly. Like, I tell you, like, if there's a thing you want to talk about, I guarantee we'll talk about it. But I won't know unless you're like, hey, Two Sons Podcast, can you cover this? Or hey, Two Sons Podcast, what is your opinion,
Mhm.
on this? Or hey, Two Sons
I
Podcast,
mean,
like,
honestly, I think it would be a dream really to be able to cover an episode based on like a suggestion from a viewer.
yeah.
Like if they were like, "Oh, do you think you could talk about this?" I'd be like, "Absolutely."
Or
Like
can you talk about this series? For sure. Like, I mean, again, we're open to pretty much. I mean, we have our own ideas, but the whole point. If we could have an episode where we sit here and we talk about your questions, if like we literally got 15 to 20 questions, we could do a whole episode on it, even 10 or 5. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, again, I'm not gonna force you guys' hands though. Do whatever you want if you enjoy this podcast just by watching. Um, be my guest. But again, interaction is always welcome. No judgment here on anything. Please, again, always let us know if there's anything you want, from the podcast. If there's something you don't like, if there's something you think should be changed, we'll take the criticism. It happens, whatever. But yeah, again, like all the DMs are open on the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, pretty much every social media platform out there you can find us on, and you can definitely hit us up, whether it's me or him. Same podcast, and everything. So please do if you're out there listening, and or even answer my polls. That's a start because at least we can talk about it. 10 people took this poll. Six thought, yeah, they like it, four didn't. Let's talk about the close split. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're always so nice to you guys. I mean, it'd be nice if you just, clicked a freaking button, once or
Yeah.
twice,
Just like that or that. Like that's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
it's just, come on. I mean, it's just, is there really that much to ask? I mean,
Like
honestly,
I'm not asking for like a discussion board post. I'm not asking for none of that
I'm
crap.
not asking you to write your own discussion post and have it be like 500 words and then respond to your classmates.
Yeah, and respond to two other people and actually not just be like, "Wow, Jess, this was a great the discussion post." It's like, no, you actually have to it's like no, just yes or no. Like, come on, guys, please. Like, I'm going insane. We've had over 50 something episodes, and yeah, but whatever.
Yeah,
Patience.
I mean that doesn't knock. We have gotten some comments and everything in the past,
Yeah.
from people, so we always appreciate those. I mean, we've shouted the people out that have commented at least on the YouTube, on this channel. So shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. But yeah, I mean, we're always looking for some more fan interaction. It always be nice. We love you guys. So we thank you for all the love and support. So just we hope that you guys continue to support us in turn. But I think with that being said, with all the socials and everything covered, I think we're ready to kind of wrap up this episode. Do you have any final words before we say our final farewells?
Just once again, thank you, Germany, for being our, I believe, 13th or 14th country on this list. So that's awesome. That proves that our podcast is still spreading far and wide. So thank you to everybody again that listens, whether you're in the U.S. or whether you're from any other country or small place in the world or big place in the world or just wherever you're from. Awesome. Again, that's another reason why we want interaction is because again, somebody it may be different somewhere else in terms of how you may see Star Wars or even what things you may have. Again, like I know there are some places that has exclusive things. Like hell, send us a picture of something like that you think we don't have over here or something. I think that'd be really cool. Again, thank you for all the love on the Ahsoka episodes. I know, obviously, like I said earlier, our first one is in the top 10 of our episodes of all time now, which is amazing, and it keeps on climbing. So, if that gets up to like top 5, I'd be astonished. But continue showing your support, showing your love. Again, let us know. Once again, I think what we said earlier, not in this episode, but in another episode where we said maybe we could do a watch party for like episode 8 of Ahsoka would be awesome. Whether it's just me and my brother watching and reacting, I think that would be an awesome episode. I'd be a little worried about copyright, but we'd have to see if we could play around with that or something. Even if
Well,
we
I
just
mean, YouTube
or
would tell me if it was copyrighted. Like if I uploaded it, it's like, oh, this is copyrighted, then I can't upload it. So.
Because
But I mean,
I know.
I've seen Star Wars Theory do these live things on his YouTube channel where he just goes live, and then he watches it. So I mean, I wonder, why he's able to do that and he doesn't get copyrighted or anything.
Maybe because it's live or something. I don't know. We could probably look it up and figure it out. So maybe that'll be coming up or something soon. But once again, guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being you because you're amazing. And good luck with everything going on right now. It's officially the end of summer, I believe. So no more summer, guys. Even if you are from a nice place, it's not technically summer anymore. So get into the fall mood. Go drink your pumpkin beer and drink your pumpkin coffee and eat your pumpkin donut and drink your and smell your pumpkin candle and eat your pumpkin bread. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. And eat a pumpkin, pick a pumpkin, pick a pumpkin, pepper pumpkins. It's that time of the year, guys. So definitely go out and enjoy it while you listen to Two Sons podcast.
All right. Yeah. Well said. Well, just like how we've been ending every episode, since we've been covering Star Wars, me and my brother will both leave you with, may the Force
Be with
be
you.
with you.
Okay, I said it a little too fast.
Do you want to do that again?
Yeah,
Because
let's do it again. Let's do it again.
I didn't want to say it at the same time, and because that just sounds kind of weird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of awkward now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. As I was saying before, since we've been covering Star Wars, we leave you guys with our final words for this episode, and as always, may the Force be with you all.
Metaphors be with you guys.
There we go. That's right.
Yeah, have a good one.